Good evening and welcome to the September 8th meeting of the Board of Education for Ventura Unified School District. My name is Sabrina Rodriguez and I'm the president of the board currently. And I want to thank you all for joining us to talk about our public education in Ventura. It's something that we all know is super important to our community, and I appreciate your time and energy in supporting us. Up first, if you would please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you very much. Ms. Ramirez, would you please take roll?
Of course. Board President Sabrina Rodriguez.
Here.
Board Vice President Jackie Moran.
Here.
Trustee Belma Lomax.
Here.
Trustee Matt Almaraz.
Here.
Trustee Dr. Jerry Dannenberg.
Here.
And Dr. Roger Rice.
Here.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. So from report of actions taken in closed session, tonight we have both some good news and some bad news. And I'm going to start with the bad news. Tonight in closed session, the board accepted the resignation of Dr. Danielle Cortez from her position as Assistant Superintendent of Ed Services. The vote was unanimous by the board with I can say, extremely heavy heart. Those of you who've been following our meetings for the last few months know that Dr. Cortez has played an absolutely pivotal role in the preparations that we've made during not just COVID, but during the Thomas Fire and during, it seems like every calamity that could befall a community's educational system. She's been right there. She's been an amazing rock star for the entire district. And she's making a decision that's the right decision for her and for her family. And we absolutely respect and support that. But the entire board and the superintendent and executive cabinet is truly heartbroken for her and wish her all the best in the next things that she does. She will continue to be a part of the Ventura Unified family. She's not leaving us to go anywhere else. She will just be in a new role that allows her to do what she needs to do for her family. But I'm sure I share for my colleagues that every single one of us is sad at her parting, because we know what an incredible gift she has been for our district and for the children of this community. And we're really just sad to see her have to do something different. As you can tell, I'm at a loss for words, which almost never happens to me. So please, if you know Dr. Cortez, please reach out to her and give her some love and let her know what she has meant to this district, to our staff, to our teachers, to our families, because she really just has been amazing. The second part, I said there would be good news. So tonight in closed session, the board took action to accept the recommendation of Dr. Rice to appoint Rebecca Chandler as the new Assistant Superintendent of Business Services. It was very enthusiastically moved by Ms. Lomax and seconded by Ms. Moran, and then thirded by Mr. Almaraz, because everyone is super, super, super excited to welcome Rebecca into this new role. Miss Chandler has been serving as our Chief Innovations Officer, and has just done an amazing job for our district, not only helping us gain millions of dollars in grants for CTE, but really just in moving the needle for students in our district. And we're so excited to have her in this new role, and we believe she's going to do wonderful things. So as I said, both good news and bad news tonight. And important to note for the record that Ms. Chandler's vote was also unanimous with support from the entire board. So I know Ms. Chandler's in here somewhere. Thank you. We're super excited to have you in this new role. I know we'll have you back next week, but we'll just have you back next week like we normally would. But if you want to say something really quick, you can.
I just want to say thank you. And I want to thank Danielle Cortez for the amazing work that she has done. But thank you very much for the position.
Great, thank you. And as is our custom, we'll have you back next week or next meeting. Not like you wouldn't be here anyway, but you can come back and you can bring your family, and we can welcome you officially into your new role. No other action was taken in closed session, and so that brings us to Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Board President Rodriguez. I want to second everything you said about Dr. Cortez, and as it's been a tough week, right? Because it's, on the one hand, I should be really excited to add Rebecca to the senior team, and I am. I know she's going to do a great job, but it's been equally challenging trying to come to grips with the loss of Dr. Cortez from her current position. I can tell you in no uncertain terms that the entire executive cabinet and the district leadership team just has nothing but love and respect and admiration for Dr. Cortez, and yet we support this move in the best interest of her family. So please know that we will work hard to get her into a position where she can honor the commitments that she's made to her family and the decision that she's made, and still add value to the greatest degree possible to Ventura Unified. That being said, we're super excited to add Ms. Chandler to the team. I know she comes to the district with a background in corporate auditing and budgeting and in career education. We're super excited to have an educator in this position, especially now when we need to allocate our resources in a way that serves the district to the greatest degree possible in this new era. Rebecca's expertise in teaching and learning, as well as her fiscal background, are just a great mix for us. And I think I second everything the board said about how excited we are to add her to the team. Also have a few other items for good news. One is I want to share with everyone that a couple board meetings ago, the board approved staff's recommendation to engage in what amounts to a refinance or refunding of about $12 million in general obligation bonds. And the estimate at the time that the board approved that was that we would be able to save the taxpayers over $750,000. And my understanding, and you can correct me, Ms. Campbell or Ms. Rose, if I get this wrong, but we were able to take advantage of about a 1.6% interest rate as opposed to like a 4.5 or something like that, and save the taxpayers over $1 million, which is well over $250,000 more than the incredible savings we were estimating before. So we're happy to announce that to our public and to our community. It's obviously it's in our best interest to be good fiscal stewards and to treat every bit of debt instrument that the public trusts us with great respect, and to try to mitigate those costs to our community every chance we get. Also, this is our first meeting where we are hopeful to hear from our student board reps, and so I'm scrolling through looking to see if we have Frances Kaiser with us. Frances, did I say your name correctly?
Yes, you did.
All right. Frances is our new board member representing Ventura High School, and we're gonna welcome her with a big video wave of applause. And Frances, good to have you here. We look forward to hearing your report.
Thank you for having me.
Francis, do you have a report for us this evening?
Yes, I'm sorry. I can. Should I share my screen to share my PowerPoint?
Yeah, sorry, I just changed that setting, so you're good to go now.
Okay, thank you.
Is it not working, Francis?
Yeah, I apologize. It's not.
No, that's okay. These are, this is a whole new world for all of us. Don't worry about it. I just wanted to make sure that I hadn't kept you from being able to share your screen.
No, my computer is having some difficulties. I apologize.
Oh, none of us know anything about technical difficulties, especially in the last 2 weeks. Don't worry, you are not alone.
Francis, if you're open to it, we can give you a minute and move to our representative from Buena. Would that be helpful?
Yes, that would be. Thank you.
Okay. I believe we have Violet Delgado with us this evening from Buena High School. Violet, are you here?
Yes, hello, I'm here.
Hi, Violet. Do you have a report for
Hi.
us this evening?
Yes, I do, but I'm at work right now, and I was wondering if Mrs. Foster would be able to share her screen for the report, please. If that's possible.
Yes, they are on the call, so they can definitely do that if she has the.
Hello, we're here. Give me 1 second and I will share the screen. Sabrina, can you see that all right? Okay, she's nodding. So Violet, if you can see this, you are good to go. So let me know.
Okay. Yeah, I'm ready. So hi, I'm Violet Delgado. I'm the Buena ASB president for this school year. So this is our little presentation for right now. So a program we're starting right now is called Bulldog Buddies, where in freshman SEL classes, we're having 2 upperclassmen from ASB join freshman SEL classes as mentors so that freshmen can experience having new people, I guess, in their classes to be able to help them out and ask questions. So we started that last Wednesday, and we'll be continuing that throughout distance learning. Something we did a few weeks ago was a random giveaway for our students. One person from each grade got a little goodie bag just to welcome people to Buena for the start of the school year. So something that we've really been utilizing for right now is our social media pages, specifically our Instagram page. And this is a really big way to communicate with students right now. So we've been posting on there. Some things we've been posting are pictures of our mascot costume around town. We did teacher shout outs. In the corner right there is one of our teachers, Mr. Juarez, who's a new teacher. We've been posting class shout outs with pictures from each grade levels, and we also posted a campus tour to help familiarize new students. Here's just one of the pictures that we shared. Just says, "Welcome back, Bulldogs." And something we're planning soon is a club day for the end of September. So we're figuring out how we can make that virtual for right now. And that's the presentation for today. That's what we're doing right now at Buena.
That's great. Thanks so much, Violet, for sharing that. And
Thank you.
for those who aren't familiar with with SEL, that is the social emotional learning day that happens on Wednesdays. And it's great that you guys are partnering to support your underclassmen. Francis, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm going to try one more time. Can everyone see that? Sorry. Okay. Awesome. So my name is Frances Kaiser. I'm the student body president at Ventura High School. So one of the first things we did, we put on a virtual tour, and I just have a little clip of that to show.
Welcome back to Ventura High School, Cougars. Make it a great day. The choice is yours.
Welcome to Ventura High School. Hi guys, I know this isn't the best circumstances, but we wanted to give you a virtual tour of our campus. I hope you guys enjoy this tour. Be safe, and I hope to see you soon. Follow us on future updates. Let's go.
Yeah, so we made a virtual tour for our freshmen. Students came on campus during the summer and spoke about a place that they find special to them on campus. So like the music room, the library, the swimming pool, etc. And we were just giving a little tour to get freshmen acclimated to campus for when they eventually return. The next thing we had was our textbook pickup, and there's Dr. Rice and our head librarian, Miss Adamich. We passed out 2,100 textbooks and workbooks to all of our students, freshmen through seniors. Freshmen got little fun packs to welcome them to campus, and we passed out backpacks and school supplies for kids that needed it. The next thing we had was our horticulture department passed out supplies for their kids in their program so that they can continue to make amazing floral arrangements and have their gardens flourish even though we're not at school, and have the same resources at home that they would have had on campus, which is our amazing Miss Lewandowski made this happen. Our college and career counselor, Miss Roberts, has started College Thursdays. So every Thursday, students show up to their Zoom meetings with a college t-shirt. Staff and teachers do it as well, and they take a picture, and Miss Roberts makes collages of all the students just to get kids excited about future education plans while we're at home with our education. We also have Black and Gold Fridays. We're bringing an old VHS tradition that we would have on campus for the football games or basketball games on Fridays. So again, kids are wearing black and golds to their Zoom meetings on Fridays and sending pictures to the Ventura High School Instagram. And then they make little collages to post on Instagram. And it's just a fun way to celebrate school spirit. We also had a sophomore student ASB make V-House masks that we're selling in our student store that are also a fun way to have school spirit out while still staying safe in public and to rep Ventura High School around Ventura. Last Friday, we had a teacher drive-through lunch. So we got Valentino sandwiches and chips for all of the teachers, and various ASB students made cookies for teachers. And on the next slide, you can see some of them had a lunch on the senior lawn in the middle of our campus, eating the lunches we provided. And yeah. We also have had our counselors being really involved in helping students back on campus. They've all made this fun interactive Bitmoji poster for kids to access them easily and to help make Canvas and accessing them fun during this time. And for the future, we're planning on having our club week, which is virtually to have students get involved in clubs online. And our entertainment group is talking about having a virtual talent show to have kids submit videos of them doing a drama skit or singing or dancing, etc., any of our art departments, and having a broadcast of this as a virtual talent show. We also had an idea to do tutorial days where kids of like special talents of like baking or cooking or like making friendship bracelets can have days possibly like during the week where kids can go watch a video on how to make something after school. And that is the end of our presentation.
Great. I hope you don't mind. I would, since we have you guys here and you're the first students back at one of our board meetings this year, if we could put you a little bit on the spot and just ask, how are you guys doing? How are things going? I know it's a stressful time for all of our students, but I would love to hear your sort of personal stories about how the school year has started for you. If you want to share.
I've been really pleasantly pleased with my teachers' outreach to us. Even during the summer, my English teachers and my other teachers reached out to us to have us on Zoom calls if we wanted to, and to start getting to do things like read books or work on projects while we're at home. And I feel like they've been really making an effort to help us stay connected in our curriculum and our academic work, even though we're not physically on campus.
Yeah, I definitely agree with her that the teachers have been super helpful for right now, being really friendly. And I am super happy with the teachers I have this year because they've just been super welcoming and they want to help us as much as they can get through this. It's been good getting back to school, just getting back into the routine of things, I guess. The district has done a really good job of helping us kind of make that normal, I guess.
I feel compelled to say I did not pay either one of these young women, but thank you. We appreciate getting your feedback. And it's also okay to tell us when things aren't working. But thanks for doing those presentations on your school and for welcoming us back. Dr. Rice.
Yeah, I want to thank Violet and Francis as well. It's been a long time since we got a chance to see students, even in Zoom. It's just wonderful to hear your voices and hear your stories and hear what's going on at the school sites. It's a much needed relief to the issues that we've been challenged with lately. So thank you for being here this evening. We really appreciate it. I know I can speak for everybody how wonderful it is to have you here. Moving on to superintendent's update, I do have a few things I'd like to share with the board and with the community. First, I want to thank the principals and the teachers and support staff and all of the teams at the site who have worked so hard to put together successful back to school nights. It's been a little bit odd, to say the least, to have virtual back to school nights, because the whole point of back to school night is to actually go back to the school, right? But that being said, it's been, I really applaud the schools for how creative they've been thinking about it and how welcoming they've been to the parents and the students. I've had a chance to be, I believe, on every single one of the calls. I've enjoyed all of them, and I've especially enjoyed seeing the kids sitting in their homes with their parents, mugging for the camera and waving and just being kids, and it's just such a great thing. So thanks everybody who's worked so hard to put that on. Also, I want to share with you that just because we're in distance learning doesn't mean we're not trying to work to continue to grow our programs and look to the future. Last week, I had a chance to visit Blanche Reynolds' school with Donna Rose, our interim assistant soup of business services, Bill Elsom Bomber, our director of maintenance facilities, and Hector Guerrero, our director of ed options and principal at El Camino, Blanche Reynolds, Principal Susan Martinez, and Director of Elementary Gina Wolowitz, for the purpose of planning out the K-8, the transition to a K-8 program for next school year. It's really exciting to see a facility that's so ready to be revamped and remodeled into what I think is going to be a very compelling program for our community. I know that the staff is working on some revisioning and rebranding in terms of their curricular theme and potential name change at the site, but I also know that Bill and his team have already started working with Donna to plan out the work to be done to renovate the rooms and bring the technology and the furnishings into line with what we would expect out of a 21st century middle school program. On the support staffing side, I know Dr. Davis and Dr. Cortez have been working to bring aboard a K-8 TOSA that's been a part of the plan from day one, who can help the principal plan and put it in place, everything that we need to have in place to be successful when we open our K-8 program next year. That that job closes, I think, tomorrow, and we already have some very, very strong candidates from what I hear. So it's exciting. It's starting to come together. Also had a chance to visit Pacific High School to take a look at the future agriculture pathway and farm and middle school opportunity program with their new teacher, Morgan Quico. And those two programs are very exciting for Pacific. I know Principal Deidre Menares is super excited for the what those two programs are going to add to her campus, along with the addition of their new assistant principal, Charles Cornwell. So really excited about what's going on in some of these programs that we're working on developing. I will tell you that in case you just came on the call, since Board President Rodriguez announced some of the personnel changes, that obviously is the biggest challenge we have is in the midst of all of this challenge and distance learning and COVID-19 and all of that. We have the challenge of orienting a new chief business official into her new position as the assistant soup of business services. And now we will have the same challenge to bring aboard a new assistant superintendent of ed services. So, and at the same time, the importance of the chief innovation officer position cannot be overstated. And we really are going to have to work hard to find somebody up to the level that Rebecca Chandler has been performing. So we have some very serious and pressing personnel matters that we're going to be working on over the next month or so. We just finished week 3 of distance learning, and if you listen to Francis and Violet's report, I have heard the same thing, that it's going much, much better than it was in the spring. So kudos to the teachers and to the principals who are popping into the Zoom lessons, and for everyone who's the support staff who have worked so hard in keeping our schools where they need to be to open this fall. That being said, I would be remiss if I didn't mention we are faced with serious challenges, and I always try to give the public and our board and our community a balanced perspective on what we're going through. Obviously, we have some work with our special education operations to do to make sure that all of our special education students are getting the services they need at the level that they need them. We have heard from parents and community members about the need to continue to strive for increasing connectedness with students, that students need to be with their peers, and that their social emotional wellness is suffering at a time when they're not able to be with their peers every day. We've heard that although as well as it's going in Canvas and the other learning platform, Seesaw, that is being used in our schools, that the level of rigor hasn't been always perfect for the students who are learning it, sometimes it's a little bit too challenging, sometimes it's a little bit too easy. And so we're trying to work to make sure that our principals and our teachers are adjusting the level of rigor of their classes and scaffolding when they need to, and adding enrichment when they can do that as well. Obviously, those of you who have been paying attention know that technical challenges continue to be an issue, not the least of which was a fairly intrusive cyber attack that we were challenged with last week. If you know the term denial of service, that's what we had going on. Our network was attacked with such tremendous pinging traffic that it made it hard for any other traffic to get through. And so it was cleared up in a relatively short period of time, but still, then the question becomes, okay, now that we haven't been able to be engaged for the last 30 minutes or however long it was, then how do we get back into the classroom? So lots of planning going on into standardizing what we need to have in place in order, if there are interruptions, that everybody has the same understanding about what they should be doing when there are technical interruptions. And then some parents have been continuing to express frustration and desire to return to in-person learning. I wanted to share with the board again an update, and I shared this last time, that there are 3 basic avenues for that to occur. One is a waiver, which the board has not expressed interest in to this point, and there are a lot of reasons why, and I've responded to every parent that I can. It could be that I missed 1 or 2, but I've tried to respond to every single parent who has written me about the potential of a waiver. there are challenges associated with that, including the need for the district to do testing, and when we're not testing experts or medical experts. And the board has given clear and consistent direction to staff that we support, which is when it's safe to return and we're out of the purple and we're into the numbers where the community around us is not have widespread infection rate as it does right now, that we would be more open to re-engaging in that discussion. Also, though, there are 2 other venues that I'm aware of that where there could be opportunities for us to put our little toe in the water and try out. One is since August 6th, it's been allowed for PE and small cohort athletic groups to work together under a very rigorous set of standards, and we've been working with our coaches and athletic directors to put that in place. And the targeted date for a limited number of fall sports is September 22nd. So hopefully that will go successfully. And then the state put out guidance about a week, 10 days ago on small cohorts that are presently allowed in terms of providing special support services to students. We have been receiving updates almost daily from Ventura County Office of Education and the Public Health Department on what exactly that means, which programs are allowed, and how that might play out. The need that we have now is to engage in deeper conversations as a staff and as a board, and with our bargaining units, with Carol and Dan and their teams, to see which of those programs could be potential candidates for that, such that they would be able to be controlled and pull it off successfully. I think I shared with you last meeting that some of the teams that have been saying from day one they were more open than others to that opportunity would be like Pacific High School and El Camino High School and Homestead, and programs where teachers would normally be meeting with kids one-on-one or in very small groups in large rooms. LPAC testing, which is an English language development test, and other opportunities that I think we should have discussions about, trying to engage in those opportunities very thoughtfully, very carefully, and make sure that we're going to be successful in those limited opportunities before we just start talking about opening up all of our schools. And again, that would rely on the numbers getting better here in Ventura County. Also had the opportunity to meet with the leaders of Cause and Justice in the Classroom last week on the same day, separate meetings. Both groups are very much interested in our efforts to promote social justice and eliminating racial disparities in programs and in student discipline, talking about school resource officer programs, which we have talked about several times here. I find them both to be extremely intelligent, articulate, and very much focused on doing good things for the district, and not at all adversarial. So they were productive meetings. We're going to continue those conversations and try to continue with the help of Dr. Molinard and her team, to Dr. Rickard and Dr. Cortez, to continue to move that work forward. Tomorrow morning, I want to share with everybody that we will be having a special board meeting to interview candidates for the Personnel Commission. We have an opening there for the board to appoint their member. That's at 9 o'clock here at base. And then we are planning a 7-Eleven committee meeting sometime between now and the next 2 weeks, so that we can bring the board the final report of the 7-Eleven committee on September 22nd, which would be our next board meeting. So with that, that would be my report this evening.
Great, thank you very much. In terms of correspondence, board members, you all received a copy of a letter from our special education committee teachers and support professionals. A copy of that was also submitted actually during public comment, so will be available to the public as part of the public record. Board members, do you have any other public correspondence that you'd like to share?
Are we going in order?
but everyone else besides you has said no. So do you have correspondence?
Just one, and I don't know if all of us got it or just me, but there was a family that was concerned, which I understand now that we're on Zoom all the time. They were wondering about those blue light glasses to protect kids, and maybe if the district can get a discount on a batch of them to provide, that might be something that we want to look at. And it's obviously not something we've ever had to deal with before, but it seemed prudent to bring it forward.
Yeah, actually, that was also submitted as a public comment. So I was going to get to that in the next step, but it's fine either way. So that brings us to public comment. And we have received 3 public comments that were regarding what Dr. Rice mentioned earlier, parents who are interested in the district seeking a waiver to return to in-person instruction as quickly as possible. Those 3 letters will be part of the public record and included for both the public and staff and board members to read. We received one public comment, as Jackie mentioned, from a parent requesting that we look at a way of providing the blue light glasses for students, since especially our secondary students are spending so much time staring at a screen. It can be very difficult for some of them, and while some families are in a position to buy those for their kids, some are not. And then I'm just missing one. Sorry, yes. And then oh no, that's it. So those 3 that were regarding the waiver, one regarding glasses, and again, one from our special education committee members who submitted a concern about how to do the assessments and support services that they provide for students in a way that is safe if it is being done in person. So thank you to those who have shared your comments. And as you'll note in the agenda, the board is going to be discussing later on how to, in a better format, accept public comments on issues that come before us. So up next, we have item 14, a public hearing. And this public hearing is regarding the presentation of the Ventura Unified School District's 2020-2021 Learning Continuity and Attendance Plan. Dr. Rickard.
Good evening. Yes, thank you, board. The public hearing tonight is to review the district's 2021 Learning Continuity and Attendance Plan. Authorized by SB 98, the Learning Continuity and Attendance Plan replaces the Local Control and Accountability Plan, or LCAP, for the 2020-21 school year. The Learning Continuity and Attendance Plan addresses the following: gaps in learning, conducting meaningful stakeholder engagement, maintaining transparency, addressing the needs of unduplicated pupils, students with unique needs, and students experiencing homelessness, providing access to necessary devices and connectivity for distance learning, providing resources and supports to address student and staff mental health and social and emotional well-being, and continuing to provide school meals for students. SB 98 requires that prior to its adoption, the Learning Continuity and Attendance Plan shall be presented at a public hearing of the governing board of the district for review and comment by members of the public. The draft Learning Continuity and Attendance Plan has been available for public review from September 1 through current time on the district's website in the Educational Services section of the website on the LCAP page.
So this is an actual public hearing, so we would need to open for, do we have any comments submitted or?
Yeah, so we will open the public hearing. We have not had any public comments submitted regarding the public hearing. So having no comment, we can close the public hearing. Board members, do you have, yeah, so we're gonna discuss this item later on, so you can save your comments for there. So that concludes our public hearing, and this will come before us again on September 22nd to be adopted by the board. So, sorry, up next is, oops, somebody's not muted. Up next is item 15, which is the public comment process and protocol. Last meeting we discussed, oh, sorry, my bad. 14B, I skipped the sufficiency of textbooks hearing. So item 14B, notice of public hearing regarding sufficiency of textbooks or instructional materials or both for the 2020-2021 school year. Again, this is a public hearing that will be held on September 22nd at 7:30 during our regularly scheduled board meeting. This is an annual requirement that we receive public feedback and present to the public about our availability of materials for instructional needs of all students. So, since there's nothing to report on that, now we will move on to item 15, public comment process and protocol. And this was placed here, well, I don't know if you wanted to share, Roger, but this was placed really just to give us an opportunity to have a conversation around this as a board, since I think we all feel like the current system isn't working very well. And this is not a policy issue, it's a practice issue. So if this is something that we decide in practice we'd like to do, we can change our protocol as long as we make those instructions clear for subsequent meetings. Did you want to share?
You're right. This is just an opportunity for the board to have a dialogue about what their preferred practices and know that staff is prepared to support whatever we land on. And Mr. Ramos is here this evening to provide us legal guidance in terms of whatever direction you'd like to take.
And board, I took the liberty of sort of looking at what some of our neighbors are doing. So as an example, the city of Ventura has a very similar system to us. They may submit in writing prior to the start of a meeting any public comment. It's entered into the public record, but it is not read aloud. Oxnard Union High School District, they may email up to 450 words maximum to the superintendent the day before to be shared with the board. Speakers may also show up at the location of the meeting to read a statement in person on camera. That is limited by space. Santa Barbara Unified has a public comment questionnaire on Google where you request access to the public comment process by Tuesday at noon. And then during their meeting, you're allowed access to participate. You're unmuted so that you can provide your public comment. But it does require that pre-registration and there is a time limit. The Board of Supervisors has 4 different ways you can provide public comment. You can write it in advance. The email cannot be more than 250 words. You can call in via Zoom or you can video in via Zoom, and both of those options require pre-registration. And then the City of Oxnard, you can submit prior to the meeting deadline in writing a request to be a part of the call. You're not on a video portion of the Zoom call, but you can be on the phone version of Zoom to provide your comment. And again, that requires pre-registration. I don't know if we've struggled with this because typically we have, I think, a very good system for allowing the public to provide input on issues of importance, and this new format doesn't really give that. So I just wanted to give space if you wanted to share your thoughts. Dr. Dannenberg, do you want to go first?
Sure. I think what we're doing is okay. I think what we can do though is I like the idea if a person wants to come down and read it in person. At one time we were having that other room down there at VUSD set up for them. And I think if somebody really wants to come down and read it versus it just being put into the public record, that's fine too. But I don't know that we need to do much more than that at this point in time.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea because we do have the space here. Matt?
Yes, and I'd be open to them coming down and reading their comment. Long, obviously, we follow the strict social distancing guidelines, and obviously we have a great phase team here that can probably help set that up. But I definitely think we need to have an avenue where people feel that they can speak.
I agree that people need to feel that they can speak, but one of the things that we have to remind ourselves is that we are never allowed to comment on anything that they speak on that's not an agendized item. So perhaps we should read those aloud that are agendized so we can comment, but people need to understand that we all do our due diligence and we read everything that we get. We, in many cases, we respond to those people that send in their comments, but and I'm not sure that's even the right thing to do because if they email them in and we're not supposed to talk about it unless it's agendized. But I think that people need to understand that the protocol hasn't really changed because they could come and talk forever and we still can't comment unless it's an agendized item. So we have, since this whole COVID situation started, I believe we've taken things that have come before us in the form of email and then made them agendized items so that the public knows we are listening. And I want to encourage us to keep doing that. But I think that I think the way that you're summarizing that we had X amount of emails on this and on that, and it is a part of the public record. If somebody's interested in what people have to say, it's not something we keep from anyone. I don't know. I just think that these are difficult times. This is something we've never done before. And I think we're doing the best we can. But again, if somebody comes and talks to us or sends us an email about something that's not on our agenda, we can't discuss it. It's illegal. So we're doing the best we can. And I think they have to trust that when we make it a part of the public record, and obviously if we're going to get enough emails on one subject, we have already, and we will continue to put it on as an agendized item so we can discuss it as a board.
So for me, I think, we're doing something that's so new that we haven't thought of everything to put on the agenda all the time, all the things, the ins and outs of how it's impacting everybody. And I would be very open, especially since we have that other room, we can have them sitting socially distant waiting and one speaker come in at a time to actually do a presentation with a 3-minute limit like normal. For me, I would find it valuable as a board member to hear from the public about their concerns. And Velma's right, we can't talk about it unless it's agendized, but at least we're aware. And we hear them. We hear it in writing as well, but not everybody, wants to do it that way or wants to communicate that way. So I would be open to definitely continue to receive it the way that we are. But in addition to that, maybe allow people to come in and speak in person. Or if they have a concern about their health and they don't actually go out, maybe we could even receive a video that could be put up in their place during that time, as long as it kept to the minutes that we allow.
Yeah, you had me until you said the accepting the video. As the person who's trying to run all these things, I don't know that I want to be in the business of also sharing videos for public comment, not because I don't want to receive public comment, but I think we could probably agree that providing a space here for people who wish to have their comment heard online or in person by the board is a really good compromise. I think, Velma, the only problem with us summarizing or not reading all of the comments aloud is that sometimes people make public comments not just because they want us to hear it, but because they want the community to hear. And I think when we summarize, that part's lost, right? So I think just being respectful of people's participation in the process, I think we want to provide at least one other option for giving us that feedback and for sharing their opinions with, their community.
True.
So is everyone comfortable then just sort of, this obviously is not an action item, but just in general consensus, is everyone comfortable with us providing a venue for those who wish to come and speak in person? They would be limited by the time, and we can do it in a way that's safe. Okay, so we will ask staff to draft something for the next meeting. Thank you all. Appreciate it. That brings us to item 16, conference educational services, and our update on the reopening of schools.
Good evening, Board President Rodriguez, trustees, Dr. Rice. At this time, Director Frutos and I will be giving a brief update regarding the reopening of schools with respect to the status of special education attendance and engagement at this point in time. Do I have the ability to share my screen? Okay, stand by for one moment. And I can see nothing but my own screen, so I'm going to assume, unless I hear otherwise, that everyone can see it as well.
Yep,
so
good.
Good. Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Beginning with special education, we are pleased to be able to offer to our families live instruction and service delivery in alignment with the broader construct of distance learning at this time. For us, it looks like live daily instruction and interaction with teachers over Zoom, live delivery of related services such as speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy. And our paraprofessionals will be in class during live Zoom teaching time, supporting teachers and students, and will also be available to students during asynchronous times that occur during the school hours over Zoom if it is something that is listed as a service in our students' IEPs. During the time of this temporary emergency closure, we've prepared and sent individualized distance learning plans to our families that are consistent with the requirements described in SB 98. And when I say we, that is the entirety of the special education department. And it was a monumental effort and a truly amazing accomplishment, if I may say. Individualized distance learning plans they're in use countywide, and they're consistent with Senate Bill 98, which of course you know is in place to ensure continued learning under emergency conditions. They are an informative and clear explanation of how students will receive each IEP service during distance learning, and they're developed with parent input. What they are not is part of the IEP. They're two separate things. IEPs are designed to be implemented in brick and mortar scenarios, as it were. And so the distance learning plans are a separate item from the IEP. They're also not a change to the student's IEP that's currently in effect. And they're not stay put. It's an alternative plan to educate each child and is only in place during an emergency school closure such as COVID-19. We are continuing to move forward with our in-person special education assessment scenario. We originally planned to utilize a regional center model across the district, but we've moved away from that to a site-by-site model, meaning we will have spaces for assessment set up at each site rather than at points across the city. Our psychologists and principals are working together to identify spaces on their campuses that can be used. Health services and risk management are helping us compile all of the needed safety equipment. Our health services department is in the process of conducting trainings for staff regarding the use of the PPE and the safety protocols. And a letter explaining the process will be going to our parents soon. Here you have an example of the model of communication we've been using, outlining progression of activities and assigned personnel with respect to closing in on implementing our in-person assessment scenario. And as anticipated, behavior support continues to be a need during the time of distance learning. And we have a structure in place with our BCBA and behavior specialist being available for consultation and collaboration with school teams and sites and individuals. They're also conducting training for school teams on an individual basis, working with paraprofessional staff and doing site-specific trainings, as well as district-wide professional development on behavioral strategies. Also assisting with the creation of resources for students to use during distance learning, such as visuals, positive behavior support tools. And they're involved in the development of resources to support teachers as they make behavior recommendations throughout the distance learning experience. And our Special Education District Advisory Committee, that's our parent committee with parent representatives from as many sites as we can have at the moment, continue to meet regularly over the summer to help us ensure that our planning continues to align with the needs of our families and our community. They've provided us with ongoing encouragement to continue to develop and enhance our delivery of services and have offered ideas to help us in our design. And they are providing us with ongoing encouragement to keep our most vulnerable populations at the forefront of our planning as the COVID emergency continues to develop. And with that, I will turn it over to Director Frutos, who will give us an update of attendance and engagement.
If you don't mind, before we do that, I think the board probably would like to be able to ask questions specific to special education before we move topics. Dr. Dannenberg?
I can't see anybody. Go ahead.
You could stop sharing for just a minute,
okay,
and then
that might work better.
That will be easier. Dr. Dannenberg, do you have any questions?
Yes, Mr. Krantz, you've done an amazing job of trying to meet as many needs as you can, but obviously there are probably some that we haven't met the needs enough of. What type of feedback are you getting from parents that are not necessarily happy with where we're at?
Primarily, the overarching theme is, as Dr. Rice mentioned earlier, is the need to be back in person in service with in the service of specialists and teachers and the corresponding professionals. That's the primary theme of what I'm hearing.
Thank you.
On your slide that kind of was talking about date setup that the sites would be ready now that they're going to just at site levels instead of having an area that they're going to meet on. How are those visits coming along, and are we ready to implement students when the all goes ready to happen?
So, and you're talking about the in-person assessments is what you're referencing. We are pretty much on schedule. Some of the things were slower than expected, most notably securing the PPE items. You know, plexiglass and drapes and the like are sometimes hard to come by right now. But we've been able to stay on track. We've compiled all of our masks and drapes, and we're close, if not in possession of all of our plexiglass barriers, and we'll be moving to traveling the sites to evaluate the rooms and get ready to distribute the PPE and that sort of thing. So I think we're reasonably on track here.
Okay, thank you.
Along that same line, that question that Mr. Alvarez just asked, do we have alternative plans for the teachers that might not feel that they can do one-on-one assessments because of they might have an underlying condition that makes them feel that they can't be present?
We do, but the entirety of that is not necessarily a special education specific item. It's really more of a centralized HR scenario. The better person to speak to that, I think, would be Dr. Davis at this time. But there are contingency plans, I believe.
No, but I'm specifically speaking about you have a teacher that deals with a child with special needs, and would the parents accept that teacher might have to be on Zoom because they might have some underlying conditions? Would they be, because you just can't have any teacher do an assessment. It has to really be the person that deals with the child on a daily basis.
That's true. And that's something that we, as well as all of our district neighbors, are navigating right now. And so that's really being taken on a case-by-case basis. We're actively evaluating alternative methods of completing these assessments and what other arrangements we can make. But that is a factor, and we are a little bit of a rock and a hard place in a way, because personnel to perform these assessments, but when those specific personnel are compromised, we need to look at other options. So we're analyzing that in an ongoing fashion right now.
Okay, and then the other question I have is, let's say that a student has a one-on-one paraeducator. How are they being able to function on Zoom as a one-on-one with a student?
They utilize breakout rooms in the Zoom and make arrangements with the teacher in terms of structuring the class and the class flow and that sort of thing. And I'm assuming you're asking about the live synchronous time.
Well, I've had students in my classes over the years that had one-on-one aides, and they're in the classroom. I'm talking to the whole class, and they're hearing everything that's going on. And my worry is, you have a breakout class, and then what did they miss in the regular instruction during the time that they're in the breakout? I just don't know how and I get asked this all the time, and I don't know. How are we utilizing the one-on-one aides, and how can we do that on Zoom?
Well, we've been able to navigate it pretty seamlessly at the moment, but some of those scenarios that you're describing are a factor. And we've experimented with using 2 platforms, 2 devices, so that the paraprofessional and the student aren't missing any class time, but can also be broken out, as it were, to engage in a one-on-one fashion. It's, as Trustee Moran mentioned, this is all new frontier, and we, the things that we're able to think about and anticipate aren't always obvious until we were there, but we have experienced that, and we have been experimenting with various ways to overcome those scenarios.
So are you thinking at all about if, and I'm not saying tomorrow, but if in the very near future they say, well, you could have 10 people in special circumstances, would special ed be one of those special circumstances where you might want to bring in the kids into a more controlled environment than Canvas? So Roger's saying, stop, Velma.
Yeah, I want to just jump in and share. That's not necessarily a special education issue, although the small cohort guidance does allow for that to happen within special needs. I feel much more comfortable after we have conversations with our teacher leaders and our bargaining unit members. One of the things I want to make clear is anybody who says they know all the answers right now is not telling you the truth. These guidelines are changing almost daily. And for example, I have heard things like, well, the district's not open to doing things outside. No, not true. If somebody presents a good plan for doing individual assessments outside, totally fine with that. Let's talk about it. If someone says we got a backlog and we need to bring in an agency or some extra help to catch up on the backlog, bring it on. Let's talk about that. Let's get that solved. If someone says, let's talk to the people who are more willing to do that to start with, to build assessment teams, great. Let's talk about that. Let's solve that. We're open to all those discussions. Nothing's written in stone. We want to work with our teachers and our special ed teachers in particular, and our special ed specialists to make sure that we get those assessments done in a timely way and in accordance with law. And that said, the only thing we've said is we have to have legally defensible assessments. And right now, legally defensible means in accordance with the publisher's recommendations and protocols. We have heard some folks saying that they thought maybe there were some of the assessments that could potentially be done through distance and online. Great. Give us your citation. Tell us what the source is. Send us the guidelines or help us find those, and we're open to do that. We're not bowing our backs or trying to make a stand on that. We want to serve our kids, and we want to get legally defensive assessments in place, while at the same time honoring and respecting our teachers who may be immunocompromised or maybe not in a place where that's something that's going to work for them. So
And you know,
I have asked our staff to work with our teachers and their leaders to make that happen. That's something we need to get right on, because time is a wasting.
And I apologize if I would never infer that we're not doing what we need to do, but I think that the public needs to hear what we're doing, because our communication isn't always, not everybody understands what we're talking about. We sometimes use terminology that not everybody understands, and they want to hear what we have to say. So
yeah. And I also think it's important for the teachers to hear that we're listening. We hear you. We know things aren't perfect, and we can do better, and we can put in place flexibility and other ways of responding to the needs of our employees, just like we can to the needs of our kids. And I'm perfectly fine having those conversations. And I know that Jeff and Marcus are as well.
And I just had one final question. I'm not sure if this is for you, Marcus, or for whomever, maybe Dr. Rice. Do all of our paraeducators have computer devices so that they're able to, I know that we have made sure all of our students do, and the teachers are going into the classroom. I don't know if para-eds are going into the classroom, but do they all have devices? Have we made sure that they all have equipment to be able to do their job the way we're doing it now?
That's something that it's been an ongoing endeavor, and technology is massively backlogged across the nation, as I'm sure you've heard several times. We have experienced some delay in devices, but we're working toward it, and we're surveying in an ongoing fashion to our paras, what do you need, what do you have, how can we help, and that sort of thing. And also, though it's not mandatory, the option to come and utilize access the classroom and utilize the tech on site is always an option as well. So we're trying to do a multi-pronged, multifaceted approach to this problem solving piece, because I think that's one of our biggest issues is the technology item. I think I can say that on behalf of everyone here if it's allowed.
Okay, thank you.
First, Marcus, I want to thank you for all of the work that you've done. I know that this has been a monumental feat, especially this platform and this delivery system and model. It's not what any of us anticipated. Secondly, I just want to clarify for the public, because I'm already getting a text message. Legally defensible. When you hear the words legally defensible, it sounds cold and impersonal. All that's meant by that is that we are hitting all the marks that we need to by law. That does not supersede, and I'm speaking for Dr. Rice because I know how he feels about this topic, that we all care very deeply that these are effective methods of delivery. We just have to hit marks that we have to hit by the government puts down, but the kids are our priority, period. And I know that I speak for the whole team when I say that. Secondly, with regard to, I know that we have some additional resources put towards COVID specific issues and problems, or that we can put towards COVID specific issues and problems. And I don't know if there's one of the biggest concerns that I hear about kids with special ed is that that the person working with them one-on-one, or their teacher when they're in small cohorts, cannot see the work that they're doing. So as they're doing it, they can't correct what they're doing, and they don't have the capabilities. Kids can't share screen the way that we do. They can't, maybe they're young and they can't do that. And even if they could, there's got to be some sort of, I don't know if Marcus has found one, or if there's some sort of program where the kid could be writing on a template, or on a something that we provide them on a device, that it shows up on the screen to the teacher so that they can see the way they're writing, they can see what they're solving, they can see what they're doing, and be able to address it and correct it in real time. Behavioral issues are a whole different thing that parents are struggling with, paraeducators are struggling with, and teachers are struggling with how to deal with that in a Zoom platform. But I think technology can solve at least the quick delivery of how a child is performing on a specific task. So I'm hoping that Marcus might have some insight into that. And if not, maybe we can look for something that would allow those capabilities. The other,
I appreciate.
another question when you're done.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can also wait, but I appreciate that that feedback, and that's something that I'll look into with our tech team and our program specialist group to see what's available for that. And I thank you for clarifying legally defensible. I know that bumps people, but all that means is that we're making we're getting the truest picture of our kids that we can to make the determinations that we need to make to provide that educational intervention that they need while safeguarding or while maintaining all of the safeguards that are in place for our students with special needs as well. That's all that means. It never means that we're putting the needs of our families aside to focus on compliance and things like that. So thank you for that. That's an important clarification. I appreciate it.
Yep, certainly. And the second question that I had was around external services. So is there are external services that are provided for these kids all summer long that are outside of what we do, that are also provided during school time. And those external services a lot of times allow the one-on-one direct contact during the summer session with the professional who's a behavioral specialist or an occupational therapist or whatever they happen to be specializing in, to be with that student one-on-one during summer session. But then once school began, they are restricted by our rules and protocols. So they have to be on a Zoom meeting and not in person. Is there a way is there a workaround for that? Is there a way that we can allow outside sources to do what they're comfortable with and what they've been doing all along safely while we're in session in school, and continue to let them be with the student while they're on the Zoom meeting rather than on the Zoom meeting while they're on the Zoom meeting?
We're evaluating that. We're aware of that. We're evaluating that with SELPA and our countywide colleagues to navigate that. What the biggest challenge is that we're a local education agency beholden to specific constraints that only apply to public agencies, whereas those private agencies that can provide services through insurance and things like that aren't held to the same constraints. And because during the school time, because it's an IEP related service, the public agency, the district, retains all responsibility for the provision of that service and the liability that comes along with it. And that responsibility can't be delegated to another agency through any other means. I'm sorry?
An MOU possibly?
Well, right. And so those are things that we're evaluating, but we are, as I said, we're aware of this. I understand that it's confusing to hear that, in the summer, one person can do one thing, and then during the school year, the same person can't do that. And so, and it's an ongoing conversation. It's something that's on the top of the list that is an ongoing discussion in the operations cabinet at the SELPA level and that sort of thing.
Great. And lastly, I just wanted to see if you've heard from our teaching staff and our paraeducators. I don't know I'm sure you guys have had ongoing conversations, but with regard to the cohorts that are going to be allowed or currently allowed, do you know if any of them are interested in pursuing that? Are they still, do we have things in place? Do you have a list of things that would make them comfortable with seeing kids in person, maybe on a one-on-one or 3-to-1 or whatever it would be safe to do? Have you talked to our educators about that, or do we?
That specific guidance is so new that it hasn't arrived at my station yet, to where it's now my charge to have those conversations. And I think that is, still being evaluated and that sort of thing. But that's my best answer I think I have right now.
So that's the next stage. No, I get it. And you're right. It's so new. It just came out. So, so thank you for everything you're continuing to do. And it's a rough job, and, serving our kids is definitely a top priority. And I know that these kids this is not the delivery model that works best for most of them. So thanks for all that you do.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Conant. I agree. I think all of us recognize that the best place for our kids is back in a classroom with a talented, qualified teacher. And we hope to be there for all of our students as soon as we can, but particularly for our special education students, we know how important that close relationship is. And, you know, the challenges that those students and families are dealing with is a heavy burden right now. And we're all hearing from families who are feeling overwhelmed by the challenges. And so, you know, appreciate all that you're doing and all that our special education department is doing to support our families, because these are tough times. Even if you have a child who's a typical learner, it's a hard time. But, you know, when you're trying to overcome some learning disabilities or hurdles, it's just that much more difficult. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And that brings us to attendance.
Hi, good evening, Board President Sabrina Rodriguez, members of the board, and Dr. Rice. I will be sharing my screen. Do I have access to share my screen? Okay, so again, I'm bringing this presentation back from a prior presentation in regards to attendance and engagement. And as we shifted to distance learning as a teaching platform and a learning platform, attendance procedures also shifted as well. And I just wanted you to be aware that the guidance that we're receiving, as Dr. Rice stated earlier, that guidance continues to change, not only weekly, but as we continue to receive guidance from the California Department of Education, Ventura County of Office Education, and then attending tons of webinars each week, we are providing that information to everyone in a timely manner. Some of the important definitions and legislation for those of you that have not seen this, and I apologize for those that already have. So those in the audience that don't know what the difference between synchronous and asynchronous learning is, the synchronous is online when it happens in real time. For example, if you're Zooming with your teacher, the asynchronous occurs through online channels, more of an independent module. So when you're working on homework, utilizing Canvas, Seesaw on your own independent time. DL, you'll see that throughout this presentation, DL student attendance, that's distant learning student attendance. Are they participating in a Zoom? And DL student engagement, it's how they are participating. So DL stands for distance learning. SB 98 is Senate Bill 98. That is our shift to distance learning and the options that we had as a district. That also mandated certain types of learning and attendance taking platforms. With that, this is also driven through a few ed codes that I noted here, ed code 43501, 42502, 44809, which provide the strict guidelines on how we take attendance in this new distance learning platform. Just wanted to let everyone know, again, with Senate Bill 98, the three options that we were provided was the way we teach, whether through in-person instruction, which we don't have clearance for, distance learning, the online platform that we're currently using, or hybrid instruction model once we are able to shift to those. The legislation did clarify that once we shifted into this distance learning model, it was modeled after an independent studies type learning. However, it's different. We are required to provide tracking and monitoring of students' daily engagement, and that's the difference. So if we think of brick and mortar, we've always taken attendance. However, through distance learning, the added piece is tracking and monitoring the daily engagement, and that's different, and that's what's mandated. It's not an option. It's actually something that is required. With part of that, though, not only are we tracking our daily engagement, our weekly engagement, but we're also required to regularly communicate with parents or guardians regarding a student's academic progress or lack thereof. And then we are also required to develop written procedures for re-engaging students who are absent from distance learning. And that can either be 3 consecutive school days or more, or 60% total of the entire instruction during a week. And I'm providing you some of the slides that are coming actually from the Department of Education or other webinars that we've attended, so that you can see that these are items that are hot off the press, or some items that we're just receiving updates on. Part of daily participation, just a couple of items here that I wanted to point out, is that we must capture the daily participation, whether it's evidence of participation in online activity. So again, if a teacher's Zooming with the student, you're Zooming, you're taking attendance, and then you're capturing that engagement piece in another module. Are students completing regular assignments? Are they completing their assessments? What are the contacts between LEA, which is the local educational agency, Ventura Unified School District, and the student or parents, and other methods of verification that we've decided to utilize in our district. Wanted to again to point out that if a student does not participate in distance learning, they will be considered absent. However, what we've provided in Ventura Unified is to not penalize our families. Some of our families are essential workers, and they may be working during the week, and they say we're going to work with our student on the weekend, our child. So we wanted to provide an opportunity for them to complete work and submit that work. So they may not be able to attend the Zoom meetings, but they should not be penalized for that. If a student completes work during on their own time with their parents on the weekends or with the teacher after the Zoom time, we have that flexibility to go back and then change that attendance to ensure that we capture not only the engagement piece, but that the student was able to attend via an independent through an independent module. So part of this wanted to also include is that we're also going to be audited, and I wanted to include this section of 43504, that's Ed Code. We must capture attendance and we must capture engagement. Otherwise, the direction that we're receiving from the California Department of Education and from our auditors that have been providing some feedback to our business department who's provided to us is that if we don't capture the attendance in a proper manner, then there will be some sanctions to our district. So this is something, again, that I wanted you to realize that this is not an option. We must capture attendance and we must capture the engagement piece during the distance learning platform that we're currently using. Just wanted to provide you, again, some of the codes that our Ventura County Office of Education, who are now hosting our technology, what they provided. 2 codes were added, and these are the only 2 codes that we will be using to capture attendance during distance learning. So teachers will now see DL present, work submitted, or DL absent, no work submitted. And these are the codes that we'll be using during distance learning, as well as if we shift into a hybrid mode. Students can earn attendance either by attending the live teaching or by submitting completed work. So again, as the example that I used earlier, if a family cannot attend a Zoom, a student is unable to attend a Zoom, they will not be penalized. As long as they get that work done, teachers will have up to 10 days to check the work and make sure that the student completed the work and go back and change that missed day of Zoom, the absence, to a present. So attending any portion of that Zoom will count. Wanted you to be aware that the cameras can be turned off. One thing that we've done, and I'm really proud of our technology department that's been working so closely with the County Office of Education and receiving a lot of feedback from our staff, they pre-populated all of our attendance to show present so that a teacher only needs to go in there and mark anyone who is absent. And that saves a lot of work, especially if you're in the secondary levels where you have lots of students in a classroom. It makes it much easier for you to capture the students who are absent as opposed to every single person that's present. One thing I wanted to point out with the DL absent, no work submitted, that means that the student did not attend the Zoom and did not turn in any work. However, again, if a student has from prior days goes back and completes work, the teacher has up to 10 days to go back and change that absence to a present. We want to be, again, as accommodating to our families. Those of you that are familiar with our technology in the district issues that we had this past week, our technology department has been working very hard, but apparently there were some issues with technology. Spectrum cut some lines, and a lot of our teachers and families were unable to Zoom with their teachers. And it's, we're not trying to penalize any of our families. So that's why we have these opportunities to go back and make those changes. This is what just wanted to give you a little sample of what the attendance module will look like for teachers. I went ahead and I redacted the names of students, and that's what the blackout is. But a teacher would see this screen and they would then populate the student being distance learning absent or distance learning present, and automatically click that in there. Again, it's already formatted, pre-populated to present. So the teacher would only click the absent if the student was not present. During distance learning, only those 2 codes will be used. For the engagement piece, I wanted you to see what a teacher's screen would look like. Again, I redacted the names of the students. And this is the screen that teachers will have to look at for how engagement, remember, is the how. How did the student participate? Was it through a video conference? Was it through work completed? It could even be a one-on-one phone call that the teacher had with the parent or with the student as well. And then because, again, of all the wonderful feedback that we've been receiving from our teachers, from other people in the county that are working with us, we've been able, and we highlighted this one section here that shows current attendance so that teachers wouldn't have to toggle back and forth between two screens, so that then they can look at, okay, I marked this student number 1 present, and then I can go ahead and determine how they participated with me that day. Again, we continue to receive feedback, and as soon as we get those informations out to our technology department, they're able to let us know if it's possible, and work with county to ensure that we continue to update these modules to make it easier for teachers, because the goal is to make this easier, not more difficult for teachers. We know they're working very hard, and the last thing they need is to spend more time on fudging through these attendance items. So just one more time to reiterate, distance attendance versus engagement during distance learning. The attendance is, are they participating? It's bare minimum. During brick and mortar, a kid shows up into your classroom, they're there. No difference with online learning. Distance learning, are they on your Zoom? Are you seeing them? Engagement is the how are they participating? It's documenting those Zoom sessions, work being submitted, all of that information that you have to ensure that the student and you have made a connection. I wanted to clear here, make sure that I'm making a determination of clarification that this is not part of grading. Grading is still completely separate. And I think that's what some people are sometimes confused with. If a student comes to class, let's think of brick and mortar, they show up to the class, and there's an example, a student maybe perhaps is not participating, is shy, or has fallen asleep in class, they're still counted there present for the day. The engagement piece, how was the student in your class during distance learning? Well, the student perhaps was on a video conference. Now, the grading piece is completely separate. A teacher still has that opportunity to grade accordingly if the student is meeting their standard, if the student has mastered a standard, that's separate. That's not being captured here in attendance or engagement. And so some of the questions that we've received is, how will I grade the student's participation? You're not grading participation. You're grading according to what the assessment pieces are, how the student's learning, are they making adequate gains? That still continues to be the teacher's call in using their professional judgment. That's separate though, and I wanted to make that clear from attendance and engagement. The engagement piece is just how did they communicate with the teacher that day? Again, with the multi-tiered systems of support, each district, and this is during, you'll be able to see this closer with the LCAP, the new LCAP plan, which is the LCP, the Learning Continuity Plan. We had to develop what are the written procedures for re-engaging students who are absent, for students who are not engaged, for students that are falling behind. We want to ensure that we capture those. And so one of our department tasks was to create a committee. We have a committee with teachers, we have a committee with counselors, with principals that are assisting us in this multi-tiered systems of support re-engagement plan. And again, it's important to capture the voice of all of those that work directly with students rather than us just pushing something out that may not make sense. And so again, it's a collaborative effort with this committee to give us important feedback and information on how we re-engage our students. With the engagement attendance committee, the committee met over the summer, not only to provide some feedback to this new attendance process, but again, utilizing all of those available resources in the district. And some of the resources are our counselors, and some of the resources are outside agencies, or even pairing up interdepartmentally. It could be a tech issue where we talk to tech department to provide accessibility. It could be something where a student was in the process of an SST or a 504 plan or a special ed plan. Then we work together with our special ed partners, or it could be a curriculum and instruction concern, and we work together with those departments as well. And then again, as I mentioned before, we have ongoing input from the committee. I'll give you just a quick little view. I know in the essence of time, I want to just show you, this is just a small piece of part of the engagement plan. Again, when we have students who have not been present 3 or more days, We've got necessary actions for elementary and secondary. We sorted out the two because there are different strategies that work with elementary and different that work with secondary. And then for minimally engaged, how we re-engage our students, and for students that are partially engaged. Again, this follows our MTSS plan, our multi-tiered systems of support. And let me see here. Wanted to bring a little piece here, and this is Dr. Dannenberg. You had asked a question in regard at the last board meeting, and I wanted to make sure that we brought that information back to this presentation. We're closely following our attendance rates. Our first week, we're at about a 95% attendance rate. That first week of capturing attendance, wanted to let everyone know not everyone had all of their devices, and so we were a lot more looking for more of that contact made with each family. For week 2, we took a little dip at 91% attendance district-wide, and then we were able to pick that up again last week, week 3, to 95%. And the reason why I believe that we took a little dip is, again, not everyone had access to all of their technology. There were still some technical issues, accessibility issues. By week 3, our teachers and our principals, I can't say enough about how great of a job our principals are doing, our teachers out there on the front line, all of our resources, making sure that we're finding out who are the students that don't have accessibility, who are having accessibility issues, who are our families that are having issues with whether it's the platform, the learning platform, or the work that's being put out there, and then how can we get their help, get some help for them. It's, again, the re-engagement, not being punitive, and then removing those barriers, and then constantly getting that feedback from families, because without that feedback, again, we're unable to know what's going on. So our staff has been phenomenal. I can't say enough about the school sites, how they've been reaching out to families to ensure that everybody is online, everyone is learning, and if there's a problem, we remove those barriers and we try to assist them with that. Again, these numbers, I believe, are going to continue to increase once we have, again, remember, we have up to 10 days to go back and change attendance once a student completes work. So when you're looking at week 3, that does not capture all of the 10 days of prior work that had been completed for teachers to have that opportunity to go back and change the attendance from absent to present. Again, we've had lots of wonderful feedback from not only our principals and from our teachers, but our office staff who deals with attendance. Our technology department, and to be noted, Monica Quick, normally attendance training does come out of our technology department. She's just done such a great job in not only doing the training, but providing step-by-step guidance on how to take attendance during distance learning, how to pull out those reports. Those of us that were teachers, you remember having to sign the wet signature on those weekly attendance reports. That's going to continue as well. And so again, the difference between brick and mortar and distance learning is that engagement piece, and then the opportunity for teachers to have up to 10 days to go back and change attendance. Okay, are there any questions?
I'm sure there's a lot.
Dr. Dannenberg.
Yeah. First of all, everybody's doing a great job. I really appreciate all the information, and thank you for the attendance update. You knew I'd ask the question again, so it's good that's there. But my first question really has to do with how well we're doing in comparison to neighboring school districts. In other words, we get questions like, "Oh, other school districts are in school online learning all day long." How do we compare to other districts? Do we know what other districts are doing? Are we in the ballpark, or I know you must talk to other directors and stuff across the county about what they're doing. So can you give me some idea what's going on across the district or across the county?
Absolutely. And Dr. Dannenberg, for clarification, would that be for attendance or for distance learning?
For distance learning. Time on task, really.
Mm-hmm. Well, in speaking with lots of other directors, my job alikes, we do meet often, but we also do talk often in regards to how are we doing. In Ventura Unified, I think we're right in the middle. We have some districts, for example, a district that my husband works in where they're online quite a bit. And then we have some districts that are at bare minimal. So in Ventura Unified, the hard work that our curriculum and instruction directors have done under the direction of Dr. Danielle Cortez, Gina Wolowitz, and Greg Bayless, Dr. Greg Bayless. They've done a great job in setting up secondary and elementary schedules that are routine, easy to follow. Therefore, when you look at our numbers at attendance rate and engagement rate, I was not surprised to see that we were at a 95% rate for this week, a 91 for the second week, and then the first week at 95%. In speaking to my job alikes in other districts, and I won't name names, nor will I point out districts, their engagement and attendance rate is much, much lower. And I keep receiving lots of phone calls asking, why do you have such a high engagement and attendance rate? And I believe, again, giving credit to those that I just mentioned, the professional development that they put out with their teachers in not only creating that learning platform onto Canvas, Seesaw, and all of the other Google, making sure that our personnel was trained, but making sure that it was engaging, getting lots of committee feedback. It was a collective effort in Ventura Unified School District, and it continues to be a collective effort. We're continuing to receive feedback on how to improve our systems. And then monitoring for us, our department has taken the monitoring of attendance very seriously, because we want to see not only how are the students, if the students are attending, but the engagement piece. Are they also engaged? Are they completing their work? I'm really anxious to see what our grades are going to look like once we get to the end of the trimester and quarter, to see if that aligns with the engagement and attendance. But I think we've been doing fairly well. Again, we keep receiving lots of phone calls, not only from our job alikes in the county, but other counties that I'm familiar with in my network. They're calling us and they're asking, what are you doing? Why is Ventura doing so much better than us? It's the hard work.
Okay. My second question is probably for Dr. Rice, in that I hear that we're getting a lot of, or a number, I won't say a lot, we're getting some parents requesting us to go back to in-person learning. And I'm hearing that a couple of districts may be headed in that direction. Have you had any discussions, Dr. Rice, with any of the other superintendents about where they're at with going back to in-person learning?
I have, in addition to just having casual conversations with my colleagues and friends who are fellow superintendents, we have regular meetings with the superintendents across the county. The most recent data that I saw from last week showed that 18 schools had applied for waivers, all of them privates, all of them single school operations, and 3 of those 18 had been approved. In the conversations that I've had with my fellow superintendents, I know that 3 or 4 of them were having special board meetings to discuss the issue of whether or not to apply for a waiver, including I believe Conejo Valley and Santa Paula and some other districts that I've heard were engaging in those discussions. I'm not aware of a single district that has made a decision to file a waiver at this point. There was very little interest in that process last week at all, for a lot of reasons. But the fact that chief among those, I think, would be the numbers out in the community, and the fact that we're still in the purple range, which is the worst possible rating across the state. And the second is the requirement to test large numbers of our staffs with no funding and no particular infrastructure set up to support us for that, meaning everybody go find your own testing firm and find the money to do it in the budget that we gave you, that you've already spent 3 times over. So it's a lot of frustration with kind of, yeah, we'll give you a chance to file a waiver, but we're not giving you any more money, and you're going to be testing everybody, roughly 25% of the staff regularly. So no, I'm not aware of anybody who's made a decision to file a waiver at this point.
If you would let us know when you do find out, if anybody has, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Are there any other questions?
Oh yeah, sorry, I was trying to click my mute button. Ms. Regis, so say there's an issue say a parent has an issue with some of their attendance recording for their child, what is the recommended kind of procedure for them to, maybe they know their student completed the work, maybe they know they actually were on that Zoom call. What do you recommend the parent do in case that's happening?
I would recommend, first and foremost, as a former teacher myself, always communicate with your teacher. A parent should always communicate to let the teacher know if there was a technical issue, if there was an issue, perhaps engagement, whatever it could be. If for some reason if you're maybe in a secondary program, if you cannot email your teacher, check with the site administration. Through our new Parent Square, thanks to Maria Quiroz, we now have an opportunity to notify parents that their child missed a Zoom and they were marked absent for that day. On that connection, a parent can either clear the absence through following the link, or they can contact the school, or they can either contact the school in person or by email. So those are the three ways that they should be able to communicate to the school site to let them know what the issues were. Again, our goal is to remove barriers and not be punitive. And many times we have great teachers in Ventura Unified. Many times they are the ones that are checking in on the student, asking, is there a reason why you're not here? What's going on? So again, to reiterate and summarize your question, again, those communication pieces could be through Parent Square or through emailing the teacher or calling the school as they did before during brick and mortar.
Fantastic. And thank you again for the PowerPoint. I mean, you always explain them so well. Also, some of the parents have been requesting how to see more of their children's assignment or their students' assignments. And I know there's a way that through my son, I had him go through the settings on his Canvas and then offer a pairing code for me to be able to see what he's getting scheduled. It's something I don't know that all the parents are aware of. From what I'm hearing, I'm sure it was thrown out there a bunch of times prior to school starting and through school, because Marianne Guerros has been doing a tremendous job, but maybe we need to resend it out so some of these parents who don't really know what their kids or students are doing can get that, can be on the same page as them.
I think that's a great suggestion. It's always good to provide our parents repeated information and tips on how to see how to gain access to the platforms that their students are utilizing, and also do that in the different languages that our parents that have. So thank you so much. I will make sure to push that information out, that recommendation out.
And then my final just question is, how's the work going in getting engaged the students that have not logged on? I know your team does a tremendous job in that, but can you share us kind of where we're at? Looks like the attendance percentage are really great, but I'm so worried about those 5 or 9% of those kids that aren't, and hopefully it is just computer problems.
Yes, thank you. So we have worked we put together a re-engagement plan, but before the re-engagement plan, what we've done is we've worked together with our partners. A2A is the group that works with us. This is the group that helps us send letters out. So we've just sent that letter out. We've updated it to have a distance learning information there, but we've also created lots of resources, had it translated to Spanish and English. So when that letter does go out to parents, remember, before the letter goes out, there's been a phone call, not only from the site, but there has also been multiple phone calls from the site. So once they receive that letter, it's a letter of, we still haven't heard from you. Here are some resources. If it's a technology issue, call this number. If it's an issue that you just don't know where to begin, contact this number. So that's only one of the pieces to answer your question. The other piece is, again, we're working with our site administrators to allow us to not only know who's missing and to have them go back and make those phone calls. So that's what our current office staff has been doing. Sites and administrators have been making those phone calls, but then they've also been requesting, can we do wellness checks? And those are items that we are working with now and utilizing wellness checks. Some of our families have moved. We found out as we've gone and done these wellness checks, they no longer reside there, or we're thinking that they're still enrolled in our district until we receive a request for records from another school site out of district, or many times a school site will call us and ask our department, can you access CalPADS? CalPADS is the repository of all the information of students that are enrolled in public schools, and our department has access to that. And sometimes they're enrolled in another school, and we just have not been contacted for those records. And then that's where we process a withdrawal format. So again, it's the engagement piece and the checking in on the students who haven't logged in at all. We're finding that most of those students that have not logged in at all are students that either were on SARB from last year, and that's a small, minute population, or it's students that have moved. We have quite a few students who have left the county, and I mean physically moved out of Ventura. Obviously, most of the reasons are economic, but those are the families that we're trying to help as much as possible to ensure that if they're McKinney-Vento, we work with them to keep them in our district. If they're not McKinney-Vento, we then work to make sure that there's no lag in time in getting their records out to the new district.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you. I have a question. Does attendance affect a student's grade?
Well, so here's with our grading policies. Again, our grading policies, and that is not my area of expertise. However, as a former teacher, our grading policies are aligned to capture learning, our students' learning. There's part of that are the assessments. With attendance, I want to be really clear that engagement and attendance capturing during distance learning is not graded. The grading is still up to the professional judgment of the teacher according to their course outline, their course expectations, and that depends on the departmental requirements of the department. It also depends on what the teacher has for their assessment pieces. So for me, that is more grading is a professional judgment of the teacher based on the benchmarks, the assessments, whatever the other pieces that they have for students.
Yeah, I'm happy to hop in here.
Thank you.
Trustee Lomax, attendance doesn't directly impact a student's grade. However, attendance might indirectly impact a student's grade by virtue of them maybe being confused or missing opportunities to learn. But in the design of the course, in the design of the grade, in the grading policy, attendance cannot directly impact a grade in terms of having a column for that attendance that then is calculated into the grade.
Thank you. And then we've talked about the percentage of, and Matt kind of hit on this a little bit, the percentage of our attendance, but are our overall numbers of students down? And if so, and you don't have to provide this right now, but in the future, give us an idea of where we are as far as numbers of students enrolled. So you don't have to answer that now, just something that in the future.
I have it now, Velma. We're down about 250 students, mostly in elementary school.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bayless. Thank you, Dr. Rice.
Okay, Cynthia. So my big concern with your with the attendance and is the teacher's time in, as I was looking at your drop down, engagement. So that's for each student, right? So they have to mark the child present or absent, and then look at the engagement component if they're present, and mark several different things. There was a drop down with a roll of things that they could. I'm guessing that they pressed more than one, that they were present, that they were engaged in participating, that there were a lot of different things. I'm just going from memory here, but teachers have 30 to 40 students, right? For the most part, 25, I guess, if they're in the younger years, but we have multiple classes in the 6 through 12. How many students do they, is this daily? And how many is it one time a week? Is it, how often are they having to do this for 90 plus kids?
Right. And so again, with SB 98, Senate Bill 98, and all the other ed codes, that was the piece that non-educators, I think Dr. Rice had mentioned that before, when they sometimes create these requirements, they forget that there are these other pieces that go along with it. Every student must be accounted for engagement and attendance. What we've done in Ventura Unified, and this is after getting feedback from our teams, and this is at the direction of Dr. Cortez, we are capturing engagement for our students for one period for secondary. So for elementary, it's more manageable because you have, as you stated, about 25 to 30 students in a classroom, depending on what grade level you teach, 25 to 35. For secondary, former high school teacher, I had up to 180 students. So for our secondary sites, they are only capturing the engagement piece for their second and third period classes. And remember, the way that our block scheduling was set up, you're only meeting with them. Right. You're only meeting with them a couple times a week. So therefore, they're every day, they're not marking engagement for every single student. The engagement piece is being marked for second and third period. Going back to the other comment that you had indicated, all of the options that they have, they can choose as many options as they'd like. They can add in as many notes as they'd like. We've only required one piece of engagement. If it was a Zoom, a teacher will mark distance learning present. The engagement piece will be video conference. That's one. They can choose if perhaps it was independent reading, distance learning present, engagement, independent study reading. Okay. So they have lots of options. They don't have to use every single one of them. And I appreciate you asking that question, because I think that's where there's some confusion, where teachers have asked, well, how many times do I have to add this and do this for every student? Do I have to mark all of these modalities? No, you can if you'd like. However, we're only requiring one modality of how you engage with them. And then it's only for secondary periods 2 and 3.
So every teacher's just keeping track of one course, one class.
For secondary, that's correct. For elementary, though, they are required to capture the engagement piece for every one of their students every day. But again, remember, the numbers are a lot different.
Right.
Yes.
That's what it's equivalent numbers of students. So thank you for that. And the other thing that I wanted to thank you for, and also ask about, parents are used to connecting with their teachers now. I mean, this is how they communicate, is through emails with their teachers. And one of my bigger concerns in the beginning was that they were going to send excused absences. Oh, my son or daughter was absent today. They had a dentist appointment, or whatever it happens to be, to the teacher. And now the teacher has to then forward that to the attendance office or whatever. So I'm so glad that we have Parent Square. My question, and the link, it's about time that you can just press on that link. My question is, can that link be sent also through a text message, or is it only in an email?
I will defer to the expert, Maria Quiroz. Are you there?
I am here. Yes, it will go through. Good evening. It will go through a text message as well as the email. If the text message does not go through, then the recipient receives a voicemail. That obviously does not have a link, and they would have to contact the school.
Can they respond to the text with like a S for sick, or a whatever?
It walks you through. You just have to press the link, and it walks you through the steps to provide your excuse.
Phenomenal. Thank you. Thank you. That solves a lot of that. Yeah, the teachers have enough on their plate without having to deal with that component. And thank you so much for solving that. They're only at least doing engagement for one, and that's still cumbersome. So thank you for that. No further questions about attendance.
Well, thank you, Ms. Fructos. I actually don't have any questions specifically regarding attendance. I feel like they've been covered, but I do have a couple of other questions about distance learning that are probably more for Ms. Wallowitz and Dr. Bayless. I'm curious, how are we addressing supporting our teachers? I hear a lot from parents about, like, my kid was trying to log in and they, but the teacher was presenting and they didn't see that he was in the waiting room, or that, there are these delays that are happening that I think are partly a function of our staff is trying to do so many things at once. And parents and students get frustrated because if it's not working in the first 5 minutes, a lot of kids walk away, right? And so if you're the parent who's not standing over your kid's shoulder, you don't know that they just gave up and decided to watch a video game instead. So I'm curious, is there a plan to continually kind of evolve the training that we're providing to make it a little bit easier for staff to handle these multifaceted systems?
Yes, Board President, I'd be happy to answer that. So we do, our teachers on special assignment have scheduled some ed camps so that teachers are able to generate their own topics to best meet their needs and what are the most pressing items at the time. And so we will be doing those twice a month, starting this month, as well as the teachers on special assignment have also been having office hours throughout the weeks to provide those responses in the moment. There are at times, as you mentioned tonight, that we all experience technological difficulties that are unforeseen and in the moment and not necessarily easily remedied. But there are other things that we can troubleshoot better that might be more frequent. So we're trying to have a response to that and provide training and professional development. In addition, we have site tech leaders this year, different than the spring. And we also have buddies for teachers that have more intensive technology needs, because not all of us are learning technology at the same speed or level or starting at the same spot. Dr. Bayless, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I would just add that the TOSA team and the CNI department have been working on a series of topics that we're going to propose be at the center of our in-service coming up. And a lot of it is just sharing best practices at sites, which waiting room management, how to start a class, all those kinds of things. And we're also, I know this doesn't relate directly to your question, but we're also learning things about our district-wide Google account structure, things like the 10-minute idle time that then cuts students off automatically. And we just changed that today so that when students are engaged, but they're on Zoom, but they haven't touched their computer for 10 minutes, we had a setting in the background that would then save battery and turn their computer off. And then it took a long time for their computers to grab the internet once again. So we're learning those kind of things. But again, I think that the ed camps, like what Gina said, are going to be really important for us moving forward.
And then another kind of comment or question that I receive is sort of both ends of the spectrum, right? My kid is not getting enough. They're getting a half an hour or an hour, and and then they're just sitting around. Or actually had an opportunity to meet with some high school students last week who said, I'm drowning. I'm between helping my siblings and doing my own homework. I feel like I'm never free. I'm always doing something. And so I was just wondering, are we having conversations around kind of how to manage those things? And do we provide our staff the flexibility to offer grace to students who might have more of a sibling or, sort of familial responsibility? And what does that look like?
The answer is simply yes, absolutely. We are, and I would just caution everyone too, to remember that we've only been in our content Canvas courses for a week. And so we're still learning a lot. Our teachers are still learning a lot. Our builders are making adjustments. In fact, most of our VUSD Canvas course builders are going to be meeting with the TOSAs in the next week as we plan the next. Most of the courses have been built out for about a quarter. And so in planning on the remaining quarter for the first semester, second quarter to be built, we're going to be talking about how to adjust pacing and rigor and all those things. So we are learning a lot, and we need a few more days or maybe a week under our belt to make some solid recommendations to everybody about how to about where we need to go with our builds in terms of the Canvas courses. But also we are constantly trying to encourage and remind and give teachers permission to customize those courses. So we have many teachers that have built courses. We have many teachers that have adopted and inherited built courses. And we want to just remind everybody that those are now yours to customize, personalize, negotiate with students. And those negotiations happen period by period, student by student, in order to best serve students and make adjustments where adjustments need to be are needed for student specific circumstances. So yes.
And I would also add that as we are only in the first few weeks of school, it's essential that the students and or families communicate with the teacher to express that, because we are still getting to know our students in the classroom. And this is just such a different format. And so I think that is just essential to be sure that communication is open.
Great. And then my last thing was, I don't know, a bit of a comment, I suppose. I had a teacher friend tell me that they, because they're an elementary school teacher, were finding that classroom management was a real challenge in Zoom for 34 kids and say, let's second grade, pick a grade. And they mentioned having Zoom moms instead of room moms. I'm sure a dad, a grandparent, an uncle, an older sibling could do it too, but those just don't rhyme with Zoom, and it's quite the same way. And so I was wondering, are we kind of also accumulating those kinds of tips for ways that families who are home, who are kind of getting frustrated with maybe some of the lack of engagement, can be supportive? And then is there going to be a plan to communicate some of those? Because I think we do have families who are frustrated, but who, we have frustrated and getting and sort of tuning out, but then we also have frustrated and willing to engage and roll up their sleeves if we can provide them a helpful avenue.
I know that we've been utilizing our paraprofessionals in that manner to help support in the live teaching that's happening on Zoom. I have not yet heard of Zoom moms or parent volunteers in the classroom or family volunteers. I like that idea, and that's definitely something that we could look at, especially for the younger grades. So that is definitely something that we could look at.
And I'm not sure how that translates. I think it could, and we could talk about it for secondary, but
no self-respecting teenager wants their mom in their high school classroom. Sorry.
Yeah, that has more weight these days. So I would just also offer that of the many things that are more challenging right now, administrative presence in Zoom classrooms is potentially one of those things that is easier. And I know that many administrators have talked about how they are in more classrooms every day than they ever were able to be. And even counselors have said the same thing. If they've heard that a student is maybe struggling with engagement, not so much disciplinary, but struggling with engagement, a teacher might invite a counselor to come observe or be a part of that classroom just to learn how they can best support. So I think there are some possible solutions there, not perfect solutions, but certainly we're learning a lot as we go, and all those things are topics of discussion constantly.
Great. Well, thank you. I mean, I think all of us would agree this is not ideal. This is not what we want for our kids. This is harder and sort of less personal than what we normally have in our classrooms. We're trying to do the best we can, and I feel like our staff is doing an amazing job. I know so many of our teachers are working countless hours to try and really make something special out of their classroom experience. But we have to recognize it's imperfect, and it's going to be imperfect for a while, and there's a learning curve, and so we're right at the beginning of that. And I appreciate you guys for not only answering the questions, but also for continuing to support and evolve this process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that brings us.
Board President, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I also had a childcare update to provide to the board.
Yes.
I have a title slide, but if you don't mind, is it okay if I don't share my screen? It's just a title slide, and that way I can see you while I'm talking to you, if you don't mind. Okay. So I wanted to provide the board with an update for the childcare options available to our students. As you remember, when we had a survey earlier in the summer, we requested from families information if they were interested in gaining more insight or information into what opportunities were available for their children during school hours. And so we continue to partner on a regular basis, if not daily, definitely several times a week, to our on-site childcare providers. We're supporting them with distance learning, helping them with devices. So the same troubleshooting that we're doing with our teachers and families and administrators, we're providing to those childcare providers so that they know how to troubleshoot. What do you do when you get kicked off your Zoom? Or what happens if I can't access my password? Or what time are the Zoom live teaching? And so all of those things we are working with the providers on a regular basis. And as soon as we get an update, we also send that out to them. In addition, we're helping to communicate with grade level teachers if they need that, and facilitating the communication with principals, as well as adding to their wireless access points on campus to ensure that they're able to get on that large number of students on, especially at an elementary campus that isn't necessarily a regular high traffic campus. And so we're working with all partners in the school district to ensure that children in those on-site provider programs are supported. We also have some programs and some assistance for only VUSD students, because we're not able to provide some, the question has come up, I believe, to some of you board members and also to us at the district office is, you know, my child does not attend VUSD, but could they participate? And if space is available, they may participate with the provider, but unfortunately we're not able to support their distance learning because we don't have access to the curriculum, we don't have access to the platforms. And so it's just not something that we can support when it's not a VUSD student. And then we are prioritizing the spaces when necessary to really look at that whole child and really look at the students who are most in need of getting that additional support. If it's students who maybe aren't accessing the online curriculum or whatever it may be, their family has unique needs, and we're working with those families to provide them additional support as needed. And so I think we have the same childcare partners. I think that was mostly what I wanted to ensure that you all had the most current information on. Do you have any questions about that?
Board members? I had a question actually, and I apologize that I forgot that I had asked this, which is why you had your update. I actually asked Dr. Rice because during one of our back to the school nights this past week, it was mentioned that there was virtual childcare, and that seemed incongruous to me. So could you?
I am not aware the providers that we are partnering with are doing in person.
Okay.
So none of the providers that we are partnering with that are typically our on-site partners are doing virtual care.
Okay, good. Because the way it was presented, it just made no sense to me. I thought, why would I send my kid to childcare if they're still home, right? Like that doesn't seem helpful.
What it may have been was our ACES program, our after school programs will be virtual to start. That may have been what it was.
But our ACES programs are also for elementary school students, correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So for those, a student signs up, they're at home, but what does that look like?
So they get support. If you remember a while back, I think you received a board memo that was a donation that we received to have Leader in Me. And so they would receive additional social emotional support, tutoring support, homework help, things like that through our ACES providers.
So it's drop-in hours for questions? I'm just trying to understand what it looks like. If my kid's at home, they log in to tutor time.
They would log in for those hours and we'll be providing those families. They have to apply for that program. So there was an interest form that went out and then they would be providing an application and then they would be selected and then there's extra tutoring. Yeah, it would be like sometime with tutoring, sometime with social emotional learning, sometime with activity and movement.
Okay.
That may have been what it was.
Via Zoom.
At this point, yes.
And is that because the city isn't in a position to provide that in a in-person model? I'm not trying to throw the city under the bus. I just want to understand if our other childcare providers are doing in-person.
It's different than childcare. It's after-school programs, so it's different than childcare. They have different requirements. Childcare has different requirements than schools. So it doesn't fall under the same guidelines, and we have several providers that serve our students in after-school programs.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Did I just generate another question for anybody, or are we still good to go? Okay, so that moves us to our conference agenda and brings us up to Ms. Campbell's presentation on the unaudited actuals for. Oh, did I skip? I really should keep my glasses on the entire time. Yes, 16B, presentation of the Learning Continuity Attendance Plan, which is the alternate to the LCAP for this year.
Thank you, President Rodriguez, board members, Dr. Rice, Executive Cabinet. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and share with you information regarding Ventura Unified School District's Learning Continuity and Attendance Plan. I'm assuming, since I can see my slide, that everyone else can also. So I will continue with the presentation, which is not a very long. So as I've shared with you, this plan is authorized by Senate Bill 98, along with all the other requirements that have been talked about tonight. And it replaces the LCAP for 2020-2021. Just a little bit of history. Last spring, we did a COVID-19 written report, which gave the state a little glimpse into how we were planning or how we planned and got through the initial stages of the COVID-19 pandemic closures. And now we have the learning continuity and attendance plan. Requirements of this plan, of course, are a public hearing at the board meeting, which happened earlier tonight. And then it also requires board approval prior to September 30th. And as Ms. Rodriguez pointed out earlier, we will be bringing this back to you on September 22nd for approval. The components of the plan, there's a general information section that has us just give a quick narrative on how the pandemic affected the community and the district. And of course, this plan is posted on the district website. It has been there since September 1 and is available for all to see and will be updated before we submit it, because you just see a draft right now on the website. Stakeholder engagement looks at all the ways we sought and continue to seek feedback from the community, the families, and the staff. And we have, as you know, done surveys, informational webinars, of course, these board meetings, and our very successful call center, which continues to get many, many phone calls and disseminates a great deal of information on a daily basis. Then we get into the meaty part of the plan, and this is the continuity of learning section. And there are two parts to this. There's the in-person instructional offerings, which speak to the in-person AB hybrid model we have, where our students would attend Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, Thursday for their different classes. And if we return, or when we return to in-person learning on a long-term basis, we anticipate there'll be a 2-week transition for elementary to teach them how to social distance, how to operate in a bubble, how to navigate hallways, etc. So we're anticipating a 2-week transition for elementary, and probably a slightly longer transition for secondary because of the fact that they have multiple classes and the class sizes are larger. So that's part of the plan. We do address that a little bit. And then we go into the distance learning program. And that, again, speaks to the access to devices, participation in progress as described by Ms. Frutos and Mr. Conant earlier, professional development, which were some of the questions that you asked a little bit earlier also. We also speak to staff roles and responsibilities, and especially the way that folks have been repurposed. For example, our transportation workers have now been working with us in the call center and helping distribute devices, et cetera, and helping with technology. So we address that in the plan. And then we get into some really, really important items. For example, supporting students with unique needs. And this includes our students with disabilities. It includes our English learners, our students in poverty, our homeless and foster youth, as well as to an extent, our gifted and talented students. And so we address those, some of the things that we're doing in our district in that plan. We also are asked to look at how we will handle pupil learning loss, because students are not in classrooms getting instruction on a daily basis as they have in the past. And we all anticipate there may be slight learning loss, and what are our plans to mitigate those. So some of the things we have in there are tutoring, paraeducator support for English learners. We have small group instruction, the same thing for our special education students. We have our special education teachers observing classes, our program specialists observing classes to look at what is happening with particular students so that we can plan interventions on a one-to-one basis. And then, of course, the effectiveness, they want us to anticipate the effectiveness of any implemented pupil learning loss strategies that we may have. So this part of the plan, we we absolutely went out to our stakeholders and asked for input. And by stakeholders, I mean our PAC parents, our DLAC parents, our LCAP parents and families, and our principals and directors. And their voice is very much in the plan. And the plan is still being updated. So we received a little bit more input, which will be going in to the plan to add to it. Moving on, we also are asked to address the mental health and social and emotional well-being of our students and our staff, pupil and family engagement and outreach, which you asked questions about earlier. And I really do believe we've done a good job of that with our webinars, with our surveys, and our call center. And our families, I'm happy to say, are very comfortable reaching out to our call center to ask for help as needed. Ms. Moniz in our food nutrition services helped us out with the school nutrition section of this, whereby we are asked how we provide meals to our families. And of course, you know that we heard good news last week that we are able to serve meals to all of our students through December, which is very exciting. And then finally, in this plan, and it wouldn't be LCAP-like unless we had a section on increased or improved services for foster youth, English learners, and low-income students. So again, the draft of the plan is posted on the website and will continue to be posted. It'll be updated probably at the end of this week, and the updated draft will be posted by the end of this week. And then, of course, you will receive a copy of the most recent update before the next board meeting, because as you see on the timeline, we are requesting approval on the 22nd of September. Are there any questions?
Board? No, so thank you. And you all know that you can find that on our website. And if you have questions, please send them to Dr. Rickard prior to our anticipated action on this item at our next regularly scheduled board meeting.
I just had one question. I'm sorry. I was seeing if Jerry was first going to answer in the order. It's actually for Ms. Munoz. I just wanted to know how the distribution went on Tuesday. I mean, yes, on Tuesday, I believe. Today, if I remember what day it is, because I know yesterday was a holiday, but I know because of the great news, did we see an increase in families coming out for meals?
We absolutely did. We got an increase of about 600 meals today, and we're hoping in the next few weeks it'll increase even higher.
And do you see that just doing it that one day is sufficient, or would you see us going to a 2-day model to maybe like a Tuesday, Thursday to offset it, or are we all good just doing it on the one day?
I think we need a little bit more data, a couple more weeks to see how it goes, to see if we get increased numbers and any parental feedback. I haven't received a lot, just a few about food items. So if parents are looking at another day, that's always an option to take a look at. But for right now, the 1 day a week seems to be working successfully.
Great. And I'll love the feedback in a couple weeks. I want to make sure that you're staffed well enough to handle the additional capacity. And if we needed to spread it out, since there is some of the other roles being changed for some of the other employees, since the students aren't at the schools yet. So you let us know what you need. Look forward to the data and keep up the great work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great. And so now, without further ado, the much anticipated unaudited actual financial reports by Ms. Campbell.
Actually, I'm going to start off for you today, since I was able to be here. And thank you, President Rodriguez and trustees and Dr. Rice. The unaudited actuals report is the closing of the books for the 1920-2020 fiscal year, which ended June 30th. It's the work that's done all throughout the summer by the business staff and reconciling every single purchase order, reconciling every single invoice, all the specific programs that we have, and making sure we've tried to capture every single financial bit of information before these books are closed. This cycle timeline shows you that where we are at in the year. September 15th is when this report is due to the County Office of Education. The next step after that would be to do, the auditors would normally come in, and I made a note here that as part of the adjustments that have been made by the state this year for COVID reasons, they have extended the audit deadline. So instead of the audit being due at December 15th, which is the normal process, and the auditors would come to the district to present it in January normally, they have extended the deadline to March 31st. And our auditor has requested that we do allow some extra time for this, which I'm also recommending that it would be a nice breather, and our new assistant superintendent of business could come in and get fully familiar with the books and the accounting. So the next report that would come after this would be the December 15th, the first interim report, which would be the reporting of actually the 2020-21 fiscal year. So if you could go to the next slide, Anna. I thought I would just cover for you tonight, since I was able to be here, the big picture, and then I will turn it over to Ms. Campbell to go through some details. But on this slide, you can see the estimated actuals that were done at the time that the budget was put together for 1920. And where we expected to end was to have an ending fund balance of about $17,713,000. We have had a reduction in 1920 year, primarily due to COVID and being closed, of about $3 million in our expenditures for the actual closing of the books. And that has raised our ending fund balance up to $22,270,191. So that is a good news, not for a good reason, but we did see a big reduction in our supplies, our service requests, and Anna will go through the details of the objects on the next slide. So with that ending fund balance, there was a net surplus of revenues over expenditures, and the increase in the revenues that you see in the far right column, the change, the 1.3 million, I wanted to point that out because that is related to money that the district received for the Thomas fire. It's an increase in the LCFF, an adjustment. We were expecting that to come in the 2021 fiscal year, so it was budgeted for 2021. The state provided that in the final apportionment for 1920, so we do have to record it in 1920. So we show an increase in the revenue, we show the decrease in the expenditures, and the net surplus of 1.7 that will affect that ending fund balance. The components that you can see at the bottom part of the slide have changed. You know, the stores represents the inventory, so that gets recorded in June, and that's up slightly. The prepaid are invoices that are prepaid for such like technology service contracts that are for multiple years. Restricted resources are up a little bit, and Anna will go through the carryovers in those accounts. The assignments, the other thing I wanted to point out in the assignments this year is that there's a little bit more carryover for the sites, and that's due to the lower expenditures in the spring. And we also put in the assignments this year that the carryover in supplemental and concentration grant, normally in the past, that could be just recorded into the next year's general fund as unrestricted. But there is a pending legal change that will require districts to keep track of that carryover and to use it for the purposes that it was originally designed. So we've listed that in the assignments, and it's about 1.3 million. And then our reserve for economic uncertainties is set to 3%. So the unassigned ending fund balance for 1920 is 12.6 million. And Anna, you can take it to the next slide and take over.
Absolutely. Thank you, Donna. As Donna stated, our expenditures due to closure was the majority of the decreases that you see in our expenditures. I will point out that in classified salaries, it looks like an increase, and we discovered an error in our CSAP program. The budget portion was missing, but the expenditures are recorded correctly, so that I'll talk about that a little bit later. And then there were some other adjustments in there that we have on a later slide, just because that stands out as the only increase a little dramatically. And then otherwise, the changes were, the majority of the changes were due to closure and simply not being able to spend money the way we normally would, like for a graduation, and we do all of these big events, and we didn't do any of that this year except for the nice drive-through graduation. And then the same for our revenues. That change in our LCFF is that Thomas Fire funding. And so because we budgeted it in 2021, that's going to be a timing issue. So you see it come in now and then come right back out as soon as we do our next update. And then we did have a little bit of decline in our federal, a little up in state, and then local. So those variances come with our inability to spend, or we gained something we didn't think. But those aren't as large as that LCFF change. And I'll go forward. And then just to point out, we're in the business of education, and that we are a people business, in the business of people, and that the majority of our expenditures are on our salaries for our teachers and our counselors and our support staff for our students. And so you can see it broken out by the way that we spend. And then a large portion on our services for students and buying textbooks and all the other things that we purchase. And then the majority of our revenues do come from the state. So our LCFF, which is our local control funding formula, provides most of the revenues that we do receive. We don't get enough from property taxes in order to sustain our costs. And we get a little bit of federal, other state programs such as grants, and then some local revenues as well, which does include grants as well. And then this portion is just to call out those pieces that had the most change in them. So we do have that Thomas Fire adjustment that we budgeted in 2021. So we have a timing difference there. We have assigned the site budget carryover for their site funds they were unable to spend at $659,000. And then we have that restricted LCAP carryover that we believe very strongly that the law will change, and we will be required to restrict those funds. And so we're being cautious by assigning them now so that we don't have to try to scrape back, $1.3 million at some time down the road. We also have the variances. So we did have an error on a new accounting item, the CSAP. I call it the CSAP because I've said the name of the program so many times. It's our summer assistance program for our classified employees, where they set aside a little money every month, and the state went ahead and matched what they would set aside to encourage them to do some summer savings so that they would have a check in July. And so this will be corrected in 2021. We had some change in a retro adjustment, that there was some underestimation of the cost of the retro. And we also had an increase to substitute and hourly expenses in classified that we're going to dig into and get to the bottom of what's happening with our substitutes, what's happening with the hourly, and what's happening in overtime, as to an overall examination of what happened in this distance, but just in general, what our needs would be going forward. And then just to give you kind of a at glance for our programs, for our Title I, we are carrying forward $600,000 that will be spendable. We got an extension so we can spend those all the way through June. Our after school program brought forward $167,000. We have some low performing student block grant to spend by June. Our restricted lottery brought forward almost $500,000, and then some other spots that we're bringing forward to spend in 2021. So those funds are restricted, and mostly restricted, and will be expended in 2021. So our next steps, if Donna wants to.
Yeah, I'll jump in. This package needs to be submitted to the County Office of Education by September 15th, pending your approval tonight. We have posted the draft on the district's website, but we will also post a finalized copy and remove the draft mark. The audit will begin soon, but as I mentioned before, if we extend the deadline, I was going to recommend that we have the auditor complete the report by February 15th, and then maybe bring the audit report to either the second meeting in February or the first meeting in March, if the board is okay with that direction. update the 2021 first interim budget and the multi-years projections. And again, with a new assistant superintendent coming on board, this is a really great first learning and getting to know the district task to dig into those multi-year projections, learn how they're built. And Anna and I will be working with her on that. And then digging into those increases in the classified expenditures that we want to really do a deep dive in to see what happened. Did we under budget or did we overspend? You know, where was the disconnect, and figuring that out. And that'll take some getting into the details. But those are the next steps that I see happening right now after this review is approved by the board.
Great. Board questions or comments?
My only comment is I think you've done a great job in the time you've been here, and I thank you both for your hard work keeping our finances all correct and moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I do want to recognize how hard Ms. Campbell and the business department work. And it's been a challenging summer. So she has really gone above and beyond.
Yeah, my excitement is exactly as Dr. Dannenberg stated, and really looking forward to also Ms. Chandler being able to also have your expertise during the course that you'll still be here to help her. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good job.
Same. This has been a challenging year, and you know, it's definitely been challenging since March. So thanks for putting all of our puzzle pieces together, because I know so many things changed. So thank you again for all of your hard work, and thank you, Donna Rose, for helping our district through this and continuing to help.
It's been my pleasure. I was glad I could be here tonight. So, and I will be helping Ms. Chandler get on board as quickly as possible.
Great, thank you. I had a question about, we talked towards the end of the summer about the increased cost for our summer meal program, and that child nutrition services this past year was a little more expensive because we weren't selling food. And so I was wondering if you could show me in our budget where that particular expense is, and then did we have a final number for what that was?
Absolutely. Let me reshare my screen for you really quick. I'm quick on the draw with stop share. So it's kind of confusing to find where that exists, but it's in the transfers to other funds. And so in this transfers to other funds, you see this $1.7 million, and there's an exchange happening there where there's some money going kind of in and out. So in some reports, in the other finance use here, or in the transfers to other funds, you see it. And when you're looking at the full SACS report, it's a little easier to see because it's broken out as a transfer out, and it's not intermingled with the other things that are happening. So it's a little easier to see in the full report. And so I could provide that for you if you wanted the exact number to pick it out of the full report.
No, that's helpful as an explanation, but also could you explain a little bit about what some of the other outgoes and transfer, kind of what falls in that category? Because I think somebody looking at this would be like, okay, I understand what services and software is, but I don't understand those categories.
Absolutely. So that's just a reflection of an accounting procedure. So I find that the most confusing as well. It doesn't really explain itself. So the majority of what's in there is things like debt service. We bought some buses and we're paying our loan down. Transfers to other government agencies like the county or other districts. So if we have children, students in other programs like in Wainimi and Oxnard, we transfer money to them to support those students. We also transfer a lot of money to the county for the students that they're serving, that are our students. And so that's in there. And then the other thing that's in there is what we're collecting, kind of administration fees off of the other funds for the work that we do for them. So that's coming in. So there's money going out and coming in, kind of merging together. And so that's a slightly clearer in the full report, but it's still kind of rolled up in a way that's hard to understand. So normally you would think like a service or some sort of debt payment is really what's in there.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate the clarification.
I would add to that on the CNS, because of the COVID closures, that we did increase the amount that the general fund supplies over to the cafeteria fund for the spring. And that increase was about 600,000 that we will, Ms. Muniz has already applied for some relief from the state. There's a program. We don't know how much will come back on that. And also there's the ability with the CARES funding to use that account to cover that.
Yeah, and certainly I did not to in any way mean to imply that it isn't a valuable way to spend money, because I think we all feel that feeding our community's children and supporting them through the closures was exactly the right thing to do and really important. But it's just important to understand the financial impact of those things. So do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Vote as follows. Trustee Dannenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Almaraz,
Yes.
Trustee Lomax,
Yes.
Trustee Moran,
Yes.
Trustee Rodriguez.
Yes.
Vote carries 5-0.
Great, thank you. And thank you both for your work on that. I know, Ms. Rose, you've been a huge help to the district, and Anna, you are such a rock star, and we're so grateful to have you. And especially during these crazy times, you guys have just done a wonderful job. So thank you both. And now you have a little breather until the next thing.
Sure.
Not really. Okay, so up next is the approval of the Tyler Technologies Software Service Agreement, which was presented last meeting and is bringing our transportation department out of the paper and pen phase of mapping.
Excited for this. I'll move to approve.
I'll second. So happy about this one.
Okay. Vote as follows. Trustee Dannenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Almaraz,
Yes.
Trustee Lomax,
Yes.
Trustee Moran,
Yes.
Trustee Rodriguez.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Great, thank you. And then we have our consent calendar items. Items 19 through 22 are generally considered to be routine in nature. Is there any item that any member wishes to have pulled for a separate discussion? No. So then do I have a motion to approve them as presented?
So moved. Approve items 19 through 22 as presented.
Second.
Okay. Vote as follows. Trustee Dannenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Almaraz,
Yes.
Trustee Lomax,
Yes.
Trustee Moran,
Yes.
and Trustee Rodriguez.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Great. Item 23, board reports. Board, do you have any information you'd like to share?
Just for me, attended a committee meeting of the LCAP, or the abbreviated LCAP, whatever we're calling it this year, meeting this week. And since we had a lengthy report on it tonight, I don't need to say anything more about it. Then also was pleasantly surprised at how well the back to school nights are going via Zoom. The creativity of our principals and their staffs is just amazing. And I just appreciate all the hard work that everybody's putting into those. So thank you very much.
Yeah, also too, I got to attend all the back to school nights so far, and it was really exciting. Missing the energy of all the families and the classrooms, but definitely great to see students and their families together and the great things that the schools were doing. Also was able to be nostalgic and get back to PAC meetings. So I was able to attend the PAC meeting with Dr. Rice and Sabrina Rodriguez, board president, and it was exciting seeing a lot of familiar faces on the representatives from all the different schools. Just be careful, because when you start doing PAC, next thing you know, you're going to be a board member. So that's how it goes. I had my mental health committee meeting last week. and it was great. We had the Coalition for Family Harmony presented by Sandy Gomez, who's the Rape Crisis Center and LGBTQ+ program manager. Some amazing PowerPoint, which I'll be sending out to the board once I receive it from Ms. Burns, and really just covered a broad range of topics. Some of them was lack of respect for self-identification, more education for teachers and parents, creating awareness and building allies fosters the culture of inclusion. And so just an amazing presentation from Ms. Gomez. So looking forward to sending that out to the rest of the board. And also Cheryl Burns and the team showed a COVID, I'm so excited about this, a COVID behavioral team initiative, which is part of in Canvas. It'll be a mental health resources module, and it's really great. They showed it off in there, and I can't wait for it to be sent out into the Canvas so all the students and parents can see what the amazing work they've been doing to really put it all together and put it in an actual, like we've been asking for it to be a little bit more easy to locate. It's going to be right there for all the students to be able to have accessible. The Living Work Youth Summit for Mental Health, which we also discussed. It's 12 and over for all our students. It's going to be happening on September 15th. So it's free to register, and I believe it's between the hours of 1 and 2:30, if I'm corrected. But the Youth Summit for Mental Health. So it talks about teen suicide, some great mental health topics for our students to be a part of. And then they're also going to be, the counseling group's going to be enhancing the suicide trainings for VUSD mental health for all the staff. So looking forward to that and hearing the feedback from that. And then I was also able to be part of the Phase 1 Return to Athletics athletic committee. And so it's exciting. Today, a lot of parents received the messages and the staff received messages about us going back to some conditioning on September 22nd. So really important that we follow the guidelines that Eric Reynolds and his team have been really working hard to put together. And I know that our ADs have been doing a tremendous job. I saw them right at hand with a lot of the principals and the assistant principals in this committee. But we got to make sure that if we're out there, we're following the guidelines, because one step back and it's going to take it away for everyone. So we just got to make sure that I know, hey, we want to scrimmage, we want to do all that stuff, but that's later on. Right now, it's just getting out there with the teams, social distancing, conditioning, following the guidelines, so we can keep going in a positive forward direction. And that's my committee reports. Thank you.
Well, Matt did a good job on the mental health committee. I was in on most of that. And the back to school nights have been amazing, considering that we're doing everything in a new way on Zoom. And I just hope that I spoke with Dr. Rice separately, but I hope that the opening for athletics we can expand that a little bit for other programs. So we'll get into that, I'm sure, later. But good job, everyone.
So I had the opportunity to attend the LCAP committee and via Zoom, which is all new format. And I know Dr. Rickert did have some technical glitches and she was in and out of the meeting, which actually gave us an opportunity to talk, because we all had, we were all still there, except she was kind of out and had to come back in. It was great to see everybody. It was great to see the participation is still there. I didn't have an opportunity to check in to see how well the second time went. I went in the morning session, but it was really good, very meaningful conversation, especially around special ed. There were a lot of questions regarding attendance and grading and, a whole host of things. So it's good to see that the community is engaged with the district, and the district is talking about all of the issues that are important to the community and to our kids. Also, the city liaison committee with Sabrina, it's very meaningful, especially right now, to help us to kind of coordinate and get the take on, the community college is ahead of us a little bit on, they do have labs that are in session. So kids that actually go to campus and go to the schools, and she's willing to share with us some of the complications that that the community college has had. I'm talking about Kim Hoffman, who is the president of community college. So it's, really meaningful guidance for us as we consider opening up ourselves. So that's a good one. Also with California School Board Association, I had the opportunity to speak with Vernon, who's the CEO, and do a one-on-one. And from that, those connections, we get really meaningful, like we get the first, as soon as they're talking about special ed and new guidance, I'm able to have those conversations and to get some of the guidance from the state, things that they're hearing in the back room that they kind of think is coming forward. So we get a little bit of preview. And then also on distance learning, because everybody's struggling, the entire state, it's not just us, everybody's struggling with how to do distance learning the right way and really connect with kids, especially with special ed and attendance. And to be able to direct CSBA to talk to our legislators on how exactly the attendance model is cumbersome to our teachers. And hopefully they can trim it down a little bit in the future, because so many non-educators are the ones that make these rules and they have no idea how long it takes in a classroom model to do all of these things. The back to school nights are amazing. I had my own technical glitch with Loma Vista. My husband was up in the attic moving boxes and disconnected all of our internet. So I completely missed Loma Vista's back to school night. So I understand how families struggle with this. Atlas was amazing. I mean, and all of these it is really amazing to see how many participants are there and that the parents are really engaged. And it's just as participatory or maybe even more than the in-person ones. So, and the teachers are doing an amazing job doing their presentations too, along with the principals. So, yep, that's my reports.
Great, thank you. So in addition to attending the PAC meeting with Mr. Alvarez and the city liaison meeting with Ms. Moran, where we, in addition to talking about the college's distance learning and kind of how that's working for them, we also had a conversation with the city regarding their tree planting initiative. And so we're in the early stages of trying to figure out if there's a way for the school district, as one of the largest landowners in the city limits, to contribute to the city's efforts to plant more trees to combat the concentration of heat around asphalt. So more to come on that at some point. Also, the college area community council meeting was held this past few weeks, and Dr. Rice and Jackie presented on our distance learning and how that was going, and had a chance to field some questions, and I had a chance to talk a little bit about Measure H and how important that is for the school district. And then this past Friday, I met with some student reps from CAUSE to talk about some of the issues that they see in their schools. And it was great. I got great feedback about these are all students at Ventura High School, and they all had wonderful things to say about the work that their teachers are doing to keep them engaged. And I have no doubt that's happening at our other schools. It's just they happen to go to Ventura High School. So it was good to hear their feedback and to see some of the hurdles that they're facing in connectivity and time management and things that you would expect given the constraints of distance learning. So with that, item 24, coming events.
Thank you. If you have your pen and paper handy, I'm going to run through our coming events in terms of our back to school nights. A lot of kudos for the folks doing those events, and a lot of events coming up. So we have tomorrow Anacapa and Balboa. On the 10th, we have Data and Cabrillo. On the 14th, we have Montalvo. On the 15th, we have EP Foster, Sunset, and Pierpont. On the 16th, we have Mound, Elmhurst, and Sheridan Way. On the 17th, we have J. Sarah, Blanche Reynolds, and Citrus Glen. And then moving to the week of the 22nd, our high schools take center stage. The 22nd, we have Ventura. The 23rd, we have Buena and El Camino. The 24th, we have Pacific and Foothill. And then the only other two things I wanted to mention, reiterating that we have our Personnel Commission interviews tomorrow morning at a special board meeting at 9 o'clock here at VASE. And then on the 25th at 12:30 will be our next meeting of our Ethnic and Social Justice Steering Committee.
Dr. Rice, could you have your secretary send that list out? of all the back to school nights, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It was in an email that Ms. Dahm sent to all of us last week with all the with all the Zoom links in it. So I can forward it to you again.
Oh,
But
okay.
it's on the
Thank you.
Google
I
Drive.
must have missed that.
One of the dates had changed, so they should all be in there.
Yeah, they're all still the same. So it. Thanks. Sorry. Future board items, you see here 7-Eleven committee final report is upcoming in the not too distant future. Any other items, board?
Just one,
Sorry, go ahead.
just one item. I know we're working on it, just the voter registration. I know we're getting closer to this this big election that's coming up, and I know that we passed a resolution, and I know some of our students don't know how to vote, and it's not to instruct them who to vote for, it's to instruct them how to get registered and how to fill out the forms and stuff. So I don't know how we can progress with that, but I will, just in a Friday board member, we can see if we can get the schools on board and make sure that we're giving them the opportunity to register, even though we're at this distant learning time. Thank you.
The only thing that I wanted to do is make sure that we continue the conversation on special ed and maybe hear some updates on how we're progressing through that. You know, obviously we're also going to get updates on school reopening and hybrid models, but that's a given. So I don't need to ask for that as secondary, but special ed, I really would like to keep tabs on and maybe have a special board meeting at some point to discuss how we make sure that those kids are not falling through the cracks and that we're doing all that we can to make sure they're engaged in a meaningful way.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Rice and I discussed a special board meeting in the not too distant future to discuss mental health services so we can have more of a conversation. We've had a couple of presentations, but to be able to have a conversation as a board and then also special education. So those are pending items for sure. Board superintendent comments.
Jerry?
No, nothing.
I just wanted to, again, just Sabrina's got to laugh. To just express our appreciation for Dr. Cortez and wishing her the best. And I know she'll still be a part of our district, but really has done a tremendous job and just real proud of the work she's done and really praying for her family and just hoping for the best. Thank you.
I'll echo that. I think it's important that people understand that she's resigning just from her position as assistant superintendent, but she will stay with the district. And she came from our district as a teacher and a administrator. And so she's not leaving us completely, but she certainly needs to take time to tend to personal things. And we do wish her well and thank her for everything she's done, because believe me, this has been monumental. And thank everyone, because all of you do a fabulous job, and the teachers, everyone. I can't say enough how proud I am to be a part of this district.
Jackie? No?
Definitely echo the sentiment. And yeah, I hope that the community knows how hard all of our staff have worked to bring these models forward, and especially Dr. Cortez. I know how many hours, I don't know how many, but I've heard how many hours, and I know it took so much time for her to put these things together once we went from brick and mortar into distance. So phenomenal job pulling everyone together and keeping them together. And we definitely wish her well. And we wish that she was going to stay in her position, but we understand completely that she needs to put some other things first right now. So wish her well in our prayers.
Thank you. And yes, absolutely. want to extend a lot of gratitude to Dr. Cortez for all the work she's done, but I also, and not to in any way minimize her impact, because she knows that we think the world of her, but really just want to say thank you to all of our staff, because the last 3 weeks have been super stressful. It, of course, is the first day of in-class, in-person instruction via Zoom, that Zoom and Canvas both have issues, and that somebody cuts a Spectrum cable. I mean, good grief. You can't predict every single possible thing that's going to go wrong. And I just think people have been incredibly resilient, and I am so grateful to our staff for continuing to push through, continuing to be kind and thoughtful and funny, even when things are just going horribly wrong. It's not perfect. It's not going to be perfect, but we have a great group of people, and they're working really, really hard, and appreciate all those members of the community who are extending that gratitude and using their patience and encouraging their children to be patient, because this isn't easy. And we're learning. We're all learning together, and so we really appreciate all of you. For those staff members who are still awake, even though tomorrow is a teaching day, thank you. And we're continuing to be here to serve in whatever way we can. And if things come up, always feel that you can reach out, because we all want this to be the best product we can possibly have for our community's children. So, Dr. Rice?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to echo what everybody said already.
I just want to echo what everybody else has been saying already. Everybody knows, and I know I've had several conversations with Dr. Cortez about how I feel about her and her leadership. We're going to miss her greatly. And we're going to work with her to find her a position that she's happy in, where she can continue to contribute and to manage the demands on her family right now. And so wish her the best, and we're going to support her. Also want to take just a minute to thank the leadership of our bargaining unit folks. Carol, I see you hanging in there. Dan maybe had to check out a few minutes ago, but thank you guys for all you do to help us make things work for the folks who are in the trenches. You guys doing a tremendous job. I have been out at the sites almost every day, and to see the classified support staff adding value to every single bit of our operation is just incredible. And it speaks to what I think Velma said, what a special place Ventura Unified is, and what a great district. So thanks everybody for all the good work you do. And one final shout out to Donna Rose. Donna doesn't always get to make our board meetings, but she's just been doing a heroic effort to keep us together since we haven't had a full-time CBO, and it's just great to see you, and we appreciate all the work you've done too, Donna, so thank you.
Great, thank you. Since there is no need for us to return to closed session, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, vote as follows. Trustee Dannenberg?
Yes.
Trustee Almaraz?
Yes.
Trustee Lomax?
Yes.
Trustee Moran?
Yes.
And Trustee Rodriguez?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning, bright and early, for our Personnel Commissioner meeting. And as always, a big thank you to TDC Studios here at Ventura Adult and Continuing Education for making it possible for us to Zoom out to the public for your participation. So thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Bye-bye.